short is that like they have purchased homeopathic preparations from two reputable manufacturers. One is called the SBL, one is called the WSI. These are extremely reputable manufacturers in India for homeopathic preparations, and they have looked this in 30C and also in 200C and tried to see if there is any material presence there. The way they conducted the research, the design of the experiment, the lack of controls, and the way they have even back calculate the concentrations, everything is fundamentally wrong. But there is a beautiful table in this paper where it clearly shows that even the control which they used contain all these elements. So the point I'm trying to make is that like they were not really detecting anything valid or true. They are just measuring some contamination, what has happened in these homeopathic preparations. And the second thing is that like apart from going to the details of this paper, one important thing about science is the reproducibility. So this exact study was they were trying to reproduce this study in a much more controlled manner with properly blinded samples, including a proper
Yeah. Right.
control setting, like making sure the solvent is included as a control in 2018. And the title of this
Mm.
paper is Nanoparticle Characterization of Traditional
Uh,
Homeopathically Manufactured Cuprametum and
okay.
Gelsemium
Okay.
Medicines and Controls. And this came also in the journal Homeopathy.
Okay.
And they did this experiment.
Uh-huh.
It's extremely sensitive machines with proper blinding, with with extreme caution, just to reproduce this IIT Bombay study, and they could not find anything. The conclusion was that like several attempts were made to measure it, and we could not find any nanoparticles. And they even tried 4C, which is not even the Avogadro limit, and they could not find any particles of the mother tincture. So in the result section and in the conclusion section, they clearly emphasized that we could not reproduce the IIT Bombay study done in 2010. So this is very important, and people have to understand that like things has been attempted and they could never reproduce this using sensitive instruments, using proper controls, and using blinding with the blinded controls. And so to keep in mind is that like one of the biggest challenge also in explaining homeopathy using nanoparticles is you need to explain the so-called potentization using the nanoparticles. So you know that the concept in homeopathy is that the 200C is much more potent than the 30C. So even if you were to, for the sake of an argument, if you say that okay, there is some nanoparticles there, how do you explain the potency? And they cannot, because if you look all these papers and if you dive into the supplementary figures and look the distribution of the nanoparticle size, it's a Gaussian distribution, and there is no change in the size of the particles, no change in the size of crystallites, or even the number of particles. So irrespective of the potency you use, you see the same distribution of nanoparticles. So you cannot even explain the so-called potency with nanoparticles, because this is something which homeopaths don't even think. They only care is like, hey, IIT Bombay
Yeah. Yeah.
showed there is
That's
some
nice.
mother tincture present in 30C or 200C, but they don't
Mm.
understand the problem in their argument, because that in fact can come and
Yeah.
backbite on them. If you
Uh,
were to say this, how do you explain the potency? And they cannot. So
okay.
they also write that we checked many potencies and everything looks same. The long story short
Uh-huh.
is they have spent so much time, wasted so much
Oh.
taxpayer money just to measure contamination. That's what happened. That is the end point of all these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Libin. So just to summarize this part, and I'll be putting on the hand raising option now. Just to
Yeah.
summarize this part,
I know I'm getting a call.
basically, when we
Can I
look at
disconnect
how
this?
homeopathy works, I mean, you forget all the old theories. We know that
I'll
they
text
don't
you.
work at
I'll
all.
text you.
Energy healing and water memory and whatnot, they don't work at all. There is no miasma and there is no vital force, because vitalism is something that was completely debunked centuries ago. So, if you look at the latest theories of nanoparticle theory or molecular imprinting theory, even that does not hold any water. Sorry for me using that pun. It does not hold any water for any homeopathy scientific principle. The only way you can actually, I mean, if you look at the papers on homeopathy, you can see there are some papers which say that homeopathy has worked and it has benefited and all that, and most of these are in homeopathy journals only. The only way one can actually assume that homeopathy works as per a paper is if that paper has research fraud. It is very simple. Almost all of these papers are actually research fraud. because properly done homeopathy papers review done by various government organizations out of India, in Australia, in the US, and in the UK, have actually found out no evidence for any homeopathic medicines for any clinical condition. And yet we are here giving homeopathy medicines for a completely new disease like COVID, which comes to my last point about arsenicum album. I mean, I think everybody would have heard it. Even the ministry handles have completely propagated through media about arsenicum album 30C as a COVID preventive medicine. Now, if you look, even very logical thinking, where has it been shown that arsenicum album 30C can prevent or improve immune responses towards COVID and benefit a patient? Where has it been proven? Like any other homeopathy study, this study also does not exist. Very simple. There is no study which shows that arsenicum album 30C. Now I'm saying 30C. Just now, Dr. Libin said that even beyond 4C, even at 4C, the good laboratories were unable to find any active molecule in a homeopathy drug. So I'm talking about 30C. In 30C, there is no drug at all. There is no arsenic trioxide. There is nothing about arsenic in any of this. And yet they say that arsenicum album 30C is a good COVID preventive. Now, this is called deception. So, we come to three aspects of the science of homeopathy: one, that it is a cult; second, that it is a fraud; and third, that it is a deception. And these three are the main principles of homeopathy and nothing else. So, this is very clear from these discussions because these discussions are backed up by evidence. Now, I'll be raising the hand options, and I would be interested in what the audience or other homeopaths would like to discuss on this aspect. I would like the moderators to please take over also, and to please moderate the session regarding the questions. Hanish and Chandrasekhar, Kaipalli, Tony, Matthew, Anupa, please.
Abby, before you move on to the audience, I want to add one point which you
Yes,
rightly
please.
pointed out, which is called the scientific fraud. So, the main reason I have been interested in homeopathy is because I don't care whether they believe it as a faith healing or people have anecdotal evidences. But what really annoys me is that you come with an extremely pseudoscientific thing and you pack it in a journal and say it is science. This is where exactly I was trying to put all my effort into reading all these papers and really understanding the thing. And you rightly pointed out they have been doing scientific misconduct or fraud, and I have no shame in telling that because their data shows it. One last example is the same study from IIT Bombay. They had a subsequent paper in 2017, and they were trying to explain this further in detail about some biological activity of these nanoparticles. So there is a graph in that paper where they report the concentration of certain metals, and the units, everybody in the audience listen, is in picogram per ml. Just to give an understanding of what is a pico, is like 10 to the power of minus 12 grams per ml. And they have been reporting concentrations of picograms as low as 0.0009 picograms per ml. But the problem is the machine which they used to detect these concentrations have something called limit of detection or sensitivity. The long story short is like if you are think that you are trying to measure your body weight, you stand on a weighing balance and will show your what is the weight of your body. But if you keep a single feather from a bird on that weighing machine, that needle won't even move because that machine is not sensitive enough to record that whatever small weight that the feather has. So the machine which the people used in the IIT had a limit of detection 20 picogram per ml. Listen that carefully. When it is 20 picogram per ml, they are reporting concentrations as low as 0.0009. This is outright fraud. Like there is no justification. I mean, these are something we should be rebuted right away, and this is the way they get around with this. So they nicely fool the reviewers, fool the editors, or they have some way to get around that. But these are the things public should know. Thank you.
I think we can go on to the discussion session. I think Manish is the first person in. Manish, can you hear us? Please go on.
Yeah, Mr. Abhi, thanks for allowing me to speak here. while my point is not regarding exactly the homeopathy, but as you mentioned, the spiritual healing or the energy healing, so which I practice. So that's why I just wanted to make a one point that yeah, there is a, so I believe there is some substance to it because I am also a practitioner of it. But as this is not the topic of current discussion, so I wouldn't digress from the topic. But as you people always come with a good topic here, so maybe when one day when there is a relative topic, so I will participate in the discussion that time. So that's what I wanted to convey. Thank you.
Thank you,
So,
Manish.
is there a question, Manish?
No question. Just I wanted to let you know that I would be interested in participating in the future discussion regarding the pseudoscience and energy healing
So
type.
the thing is that, like, did you say that you practice homeopathy also, other than spiritual healing?
No, I only practice spiritual healing.
What is the difference between homeopathy and spiritual healing? If you could explain.
Yeah, in homeopathy they use some type of physical medicine on whatever the small pill they give. But in the kind of energy healing I do not use any kind of physical medicine in physical form. It's only on the subtle energy level that is the healing is carried out.
What kind of energy? Electromagnetic, strong nuclear energy, thermal energy.
It's little beyond that. It's called as a prana shakti, and I'm myself working in the challenging field of diabetes and other ailments which are not easily curable. But I do not want to disgrace. Actually, I do not want to disturb the decorum of this move. So maybe next time.
Manish, can you explain what is this Prana Shakti?
No, before going to that, like, Mr. Manish, have you heard about a homeo clinic where they use hair transmission to transfer the energy to the patient? They treat without giving any medicine at all. You said homeopathy uses a physical medicine, but there are some homeopathy practitioners who doesn't even use any form of medicine. They just transmit using a hair and they deliver it directly to the patient wirelessly. So is it that kind of treatment that you're referring to when you say spiritual energy healing?
Actually, unfortunately, I have never studied any aspect of homeopathy. But in my type of energy healing, I do not use any medium, the physical medium. The medium I use is quite subtle in nature. It's means it's quite kind of I can say it the energy transmitted through the means environment or wireless media that type. But the results are evident. Yeah, that I can assure.
Manish, I have a question. So, when you use energy, does the energy flow through you, or do you use some other object like, for example, a mango or a papaya or a steel plate? How does that energy transfer happen?
Yeah, I use both the method as you mentioned that sometimes I use sometimes I direct the energy through my spiritual body or the channel through my spiritual body, and sometimes I use external things like there are natural crystals which are that are made of quartz crystal, so which are quite energy sensitive, and these crystals are used in the energy healing. But also one thing I would like to share you is that as energy healing is not so easy to means get result. So maybe it is not quite prominent because generally this energy healing is quite used as a for peace of mind and happiness and all these things. But very rarely it is used for serious ailments. I myself is working in recently I'm working with a cancer also, so I am seeing some promising result in
Yeah. Kaipalli, would you like to ask something?
I don't know where to begin. I think you should.
Yeah. So, Manish,
Abby,
has there been in any circumstance? I'm sorry, we are deviating from homeopathy, but actually, homeopathy does use energy healing, like we discussed.
Abby,
It uses moon rays and X-rays in milk sugar to treat patients. So, what Manish is doing is also something like homeopathy, but without any physical medium. So, I would like to ask Manish that is there any circumstance where you use too much of energy and burn the patient physically? with all that energy going in and coming out, have you actually burned?
Like
No.
overdose,
Hello.
energy overdose.
Yeah, energy overdose did happen, but it means it did not manifested in the physical form. But sometimes they get
Hello. Hello.
a little bit of
Metaphysical.
yeah,
The
headache,
metaphysical.
headache or something like that. That happens with the energy overdose.
Okay,
Okay.
Manish,
Manish, I
I
just
think
need to ask one more question.
yeah.
Like,
Do you?
are you a medical practitioner, or do you have any license to practice this kind of healing? Thank you.
Yeah, I have taken a proper training with the certification, but I am not exactly a medical practitioner. By the profession, I am a IIT professional. But I do energy healing as my amateur part-time hobby, where I try to help people without
Yeah.
taking any money.
Yeah.
I do
So,
not charge
Manish,
anything.
I think we can move on to the next person, but I would like a word of advice also here before we put you back to the audience that please stop reading too much X-Men comics. Okay, please
Yeah.
stop reading too much X-Men comics, and let us move on to the reality here, which is homeopathy, and let us continue.
Abby, am
So
I audible
hobby,
here? Am I
as a
audible?
hobby, you treat cancer. That's very, very exciting. Thank you, Manish.
Abby, am I
Liloch,
audible? I would like
any
to.
more
Yeah,
Hello.
hello.
crystal healing?
Sorry, Arif is blinking. Arif, if you were to give a final
Yeah.
conclusion, we can
Yeah.
move to next person.
Yeah. Am I audible here? Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. Apart from the jokes and the and the satirical responses that we were giving to that Manish, I would like to give an academic point of view to that kind of uh, experience that he was sharing here. So when we go back to the literature, especially the, the the literature done by Hahnemann, we can see that Hahnemann was always telling about this infinite dilution and all these kind of potentization that he has envisaged using the energy medicine concepts. But one thing which we have to understand at this point of time is that Hahnemann was very much particular about the chemical aspect, but not that in a clear manner. But what he was telling that though I'm asking you to go for the dilution in a series of dilution higher and higher, even then there should be some end point to that, because Hahnemann was having a minor idea that there should be a point where this should stop, and that's why he was always asking for stopping at 30C. That was the limit, or that was the end point of the dilution which Hahnemann has given. But after Hahnemann, what happened was some doctors, like some practitioners like Kent was actually not a medical practitioner. He was a pastor, and he was taking up all these teachings of Hahnemann. He was giving a spiritual outlook to that, using the religious texts and all such stories. And what he gave was a very mystical and what a very spiritual outlook for that Hahnemannian teachings. And that's how it went from 30C to 200C, 1000C, and 10,000C, and so on. So actually, what Hahnemann taught us is to stop at 30. But even then, there's a problem. That is, today, when it comes to India, we have already many other spiritual systems, like what the person here, Manish, was talking. They are able to take up all these kind of homeopathic teachings, especially that's taught by Kent, and they can easily blend it with their spiritual practice, and that's one reason why it is popular among such spiritual practitioners. And it's not just with Manish, we can even see that with the mullahs and the ustad and some other witchcraft practitioners even in our state. So that's the one reason. So here we should exonerate Hahnemann from being a reason for this promoting this spiritual aspect of homeopathy. In that case, Hahnemann is not not the real reason. Here, Kent is the real reason for giving a spiritual aspect to homeopathy. Okay.
Dr. Arif, if I may ask, like,
Yeah.
he also talked about animal magnetism, right? Like it sounds very similar to what the other guy Manish was saying.
Yeah, yeah,
It's also an invisible power, and he used it to heal people. So
yeah.
is it in any way similar to what Manish was speaking?
Actually, this animal magnetism and such mesmerism and such practices were popular during Hahnemann's time. And what Hahnemann was trying to do was to give an option. If homeopathy doesn't work, what next? He was just trying to give an option, and that's how he promoted animal magnetism, mineral bath, and such occult practices along with homeopathy. So we can say that Hahnemann had given a door entry there, an opponent for attaching anything towards homeopathy. That's true, and maybe that's why Kent was successfully, and I think that's one reason why Kent was successfully able to club all these spiritual aspects to homeopathy. So, yeah, that's the reality. Okay.
Thank you, Arif. I think the next person we had was either Atharva or Lelouch. I'm not sure. Atharva, maybe you can go first.
No. I'm not the person.
Okay, then maybe
Otherwise,
the
in
next
our
in my
panel.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Then the
he's
next
in
is
the pan.
actually
Well,
thank you, thank you. Next is Lelouch.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah,
Hello,
yeah.
can you
Please
hear
go
me?
ahead.
hello.
Yeah, see, I don't have anything related to science to ask because homeopathy is not a science. My question is to Dr. Arif. So, I think Dr. Arif had an MI last year. So, during that time, I posted something like feeling sad for Dr. Arif, something like that. So, my friend who is a homeopath, she told me that she is having this group and Dr. Arif is supposed to be her alumni, and they were telling like they are all of them are happy that it happened to Dr. Arif. So my question is like, is homeopathy turning into something like a religion, like little bit fundamentalist kind of religion?
Arif,
Yeah,
I hope the question
yeah,
is clear.
yeah. The question is clear. Thank you. And obviously, there's no doubt in that homeopathy is worse than a religion, because when you take a religion, it's having a vast outlook with different factions and the quarrels in between. But when you come to homeopathy, it's a close knit cult where you can see very stringent rules being enforced upon its proponents, and trying to hunt down the black sheeps within the system, and to being like a mafia where the people who are trying to question its principles are trying to are even led to some punishments, like which I am facing now, that is my registration getting cancelled. So these kind of actions are not that common in other religions. Maybe you can see in some religions like Islam, you can see that, but in homeopathy that is so rampant, and you can anyone can even see that happening to yourself. Okay, just try to criticize homeopathy being a homeopath. You can see that, you can feel it.
I just have a question to the rest of the moderators. How many are we admitting? Do we close hand raising?
I think better we can close once we.
Can I speak very important?
Yeah, I closed it. I
So
closed it.
Dr. Arif, so who is worse, Islam fundamentalist or like homeopathic fundamentalist?
Yeah, I
You
don't.
don't have to answer that. Lauchak, questions are
Yeah.
not right. Please don't answer that.
Yeah.
If you are done, we may push you down to the pseudos to the audience. Thank you.
Push you down to the pseudoscience.
It's already
That
I
was
mean,
answered.
my head is full of pseudoscience now because I'm reading both Ayurveda and Organon. I'm totally messed up.
Okay, okay. Next in the list is Arun. Arun, please go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I would like to like point out a paper. I don't know. Most of the speakers here pointed to papers in homeopathy or pseudoscience journals, which usually no one related to science reads. So this is a paper which was published in Nature in 1988, and the paper's topic is human basophil degranulation triggered by very, very dilute antiserum against immunoglobulin E. So I don't know any of the authors, any of the moderators here have read about this paper. So this paper has created a stir at that time, that is in 1998. It was widely criticized, but I am astonished that this paper is not retracted and still is active in Nature. And any
Arun, you are not audible. Can you
think
please repeat?
moderators, am I audible now?
Yes, please repeat. No,
Hello.
we could not hear.
Yeah, actually, I was talking about a paper published in Nature in 1988. As many of you may know that Nature is one of the most important journals in science, and it is the top papers get published in Nature. So in 1998, the title of the paper is Human Basophil Degranulation Triggered by Very Dilute Antiserum Against Immunoglobulin E. So this was published in 1988, and it is still available in Nature's website. If you want, I can give you the PubMed ID or whatever it is. So I would like to know what moderators think about this paper. Have they came up across this paper, because this paper was widely criticized and it was discussed a lot at that time, and also at this point of time, I think this is the only paper which you can say is published in a reputed journal which is still existing. So can anyone comment on that?
Okay, Arun, I will take that question because the
Yes.
paper which you are referring is very well aware of me. Um,
Yes.
I'm just gonna temporarily mute it because of the echo I'm getting. Okay, so for the audience who is here, I think we have close to 410 people. You can actually just type in your words search high dilution experiments a dilution. Okay, so this was basically the retraction or the rebuttal for that paper which Arun is referring about. So this, or you can also take your Wikipedia and type Ben Veniste affair, Ben Veniste affair. So that will give you a lot of details. So just to give a context to what Arun is discussing, yes, there was a paper which came in 1988. This was by this author called Jacques Ben Veniste, and this was regarding, you have extremely high dilutions, and you have high dilutions of anti-Ig antibody, and it can still degranulate basophils. This was the kind of thing, and kind of supporting homeopathy. So after this paper came, there was a lot of controversy, including our famous skeptic James Randi, who actually invited to do these experiments, to repeat these experiments. So if you were to check the Ben Veniste affair, and if you just scroll down and see attempts to replicate Ben Winstead results, you will already get the answer. This paper has been thoroughly refuted, and you can also read the section High Dilution Experiments and Dilution. So, this, you are right, this was probably the last paper which ever came in a high impact journal, which is support to homeopathy. But there was scientific misconduct when there was done properly. They realized that this was a kind of a bias from a technician. I think a person who can actually add more inputs to this is actually here, who is Manoj Kamath, who actually wrote in detail about this. So maybe I'll also ask him to add some more inputs to the Ben Veniste studies. Dr. Manoj, are you there?
Yeah, I am here, but I don't think a detailed discussion is needed here because it will be very long. And anybody can read it because that was debunked up to the core by James Randi. And I
Yeah,
believe that that paper was retracted. That's what the James Randi's website says. Retracted by the editors, but still in the print form it was there because it's already published in libraries. It is there. I referred from library, but later on it was retracted, that paper, Ben Winstead's paper. And Ben
I
Winstead was
can't. I
Hello.
cannot find this. I cannot find this paper in Nature. If you could please provide the link or the
nature.
DOI.
No, not on the site. It is in the print form in my library.
Okay.
Because already it was printed. Afterwards, James Randi interfered, and he told he is not a scientifically trained person, James Randi. But James Randi told it is unbelievable. If a scientist published, it's a rather unbelievable thing, and he has to justify. And he wrote to Nature, and he personally went to the editor, because editor was telling that this is a scientific study, and so on and so on, because experimental evidence is there. Then James Randi told it is not really true evidence. There may be, and that may be the first time in the history paper published in Nature was re-examined, and the research data was rechecked after going to the lab. Editors went to the lab and checked, in fact. So that's how they could debunk. If James Randi didn't interfere, this would have been an accepted paper, as our the participant told. This would have been a very accepted paper, and this can mislead a lot of people. That's a thing. Um, and I wanted to ask, in fact, I came to ask a question to Libin. This is a different aspect, and in the sense, the Libin analyzed and dissected the paper, means work of IIT, IIT Bombay. So I also know the group, because because he also works in that group leader is working in the same area. I'm also doing research. So Libin, what do you think about such a study? Because any professor, not professor, even a student studied chemistry, won't think in that way. They have a kind of research question. A person studied Avogadro's theory will never ask such a research question. So they have asked the question, and the professor, he was leading, and a person who is knowing a nanotechnology, very basics of nano material, will never do such a thing, because you can't make a nanometal just by shaking. You take a powder and just put it in water, make it mother tincture, go on shaking. You can't divide it into nanomaterial. Preparing nanomaterial is a different art of different art in itself. Generally, other people in science means other researchers in science may not be knowing that, but people generally researchers working in nanomaterial knows how difficult it is to make. So I don't think really a researcher work means going into this topic, whether he's genuine or not. That thought itself, their research question, their methods are okay, but that basic question hypothesis they are making, it is unscientific. So Libin, do you think that this is a very genuine research question, or they have some other intention? That's what I understand. Can you analyze the psychology of those researchers? And to add, the student worked in this team has got an award by Ayush, best researcher award. That student got best researcher award, and that was means given in a they were awarded in a very big ceremony, means organized by that Homeo Research Council. So, Libin, how, why, what is the psychology of people going in that line?
Yeah,
Sure, Manoj.
before that, Libin, I think getting an award from Ayush is actually bad for your resume. Just want to add that. So,
Maybe or may not be, but they got the award.
yeah, I think it's not good to put that on the resume.
Yeah.
Libin, please take over.
Yeah, so before I move on to what Manoj asked, I want to put one more nail on that question which Arun has just asked. So Arun, I would encourage you to read High Dilution Experiments in Dilution. This was also published in Nature as a response to the Benveniste claims. Okay, I'm just scrolling down and reading the conclusion for you. We conclude that the claims made by Devanas et al., that is a Benveniste paper, are not to be believed. Our conclusion, not based solely on circumstance, that the only strictly double blind experiments we have witnessed prove to be failures. Okay, and there is another important thing: the care with which the experiments reported have been carried out does not match with the extraordinary character of the claims made in the interpretation. The law, so it's already been debunked to a point, it's in the grave now. So I would highly encourage that you should also check the rebuttals and the reproducibility, and just even if you don't have the time to read scientific papers, take Wikipedia and type Ben Veniste affair, VENIST affair, and go to the section attempts to replicate beneficial results. I think that should be good enough for you. Okay, now coming
Just
to
to add to this,
I
just
have
to
a
add to
follow
this,
up.
in
Hello,
in the Science Brigade public forum, public
hello.
Telegram group, I have just put this paper. The PDF file is available for those who are interested in reading this. Thank you.
Yeah, Kenneth, please add on.
Hello.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
there,
we'll
have a
come
there
to
is
follow
an
up.
hello. There is another paper which is again
Hello.
rebutting this paper. Hello, can you hear?
Yes, yes, please
yeah,
go
go
on.
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, there is another paper in Nature, again in Nature in 1993, which says that human basophil degranulation is not triggered by very dilute RT-methionine against human immunoglobulin E. By Hurst et al., it is again in Nature, which is again rebutting the same paper. So he has to read, Arun has to read all this rebuttal.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes,
Can
Arun.
yeah.
Arun, I think we have
My
answered it. Do you
question
have?
was, see, no, I have a follow up question for this. Hello.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, I have read about this. I have read about this. See, I am actually a postdoctoral fellow, so I do
No,
read
if you,
scientific
if you
papers.
have read this one, you said that there is no rebuttal so far, right? You have heard at least two
See,
rebuttals.
my question is why is the paper not retracted? The paper is not retracted. You can access it now. If you want, I can give you the PubMed ID.
Yeah, Arun, I'll add on to this point. See, there
Yeah.
are about, do you know about this person called Elizabeth Bick? She actually finds out a lot of data fraud and reports it to a lot of these journals, but he herself says that only less than 2% of these journals actually investigate and retract. There is a reason behind that. Most of these high-end journals either retract a paper, their impact factor goes down, citations go down, they have a lot of problems to deal with. Investigations take time, money, and everything. So just because it is not retracted does not mean that paper is actually something that you can keep quoting on. And it's actually from decades ago. And there are rebuttals on it. And I think we should all look into the whole picture rather than just sticking to one of these papers. I think this is the end of this conversation. We may move on to the next person now.
Abhi,
Manjunath,
before
please. Yeah.
Babi, before that, I had to give a quick response to the question Dr. Manoj asked, right, regarding the IIT Bombay study.
Yes,
So
yes,
his
please do.
question was like whether was there any kind of motivation or what is the reason why people in IIT are doing these kind of studies. Honestly, I do not know why they have been doing these kind of studies, but one thing I know for sure is that all these studies have been coming from one single first author. His name is Prashant Chikramane. Okay, so all these extraordinary claims have been coming from him as a first author. But there is also an important aspect to this. The principal authors or principal investigators also do revise the manuscript and look for things before they even submit, and that is something I also find as a problem in the problem. I think that I'm a researcher. I'm actually doing some research, and imagine that I cooked up something or I made a mistake by chance. But I am not the only one revising the manuscript. It gets go through my supervisor, it go through my colleagues, and they all give feedback, and then only we submit to the peer review process. And peer reviews still have to find all these flaws. So I still don't know how. I mean, homeopathy, the journal Homeopathy takes pretty much all crap, but at the end of the day, I do not know is there any hidden agenda or motivation from a principal investigator who has been doing research in IIT Bombay, who have been pushing this kind of thing. So I don't know, is there any rationale behind this? I don't think it is something called homeopharma or anything like that. But maybe he might have some personal experience taking homeopathy, or as yesterday's discussion, RC pointed out, there are a lot of Nobel laureates who are actually who believe about in God, or they are theists and things like that. So we don't know. There could be something, and that bias would probably come in your research. There are people who pray before submitting the manuscript, and all these things. So we don't know. We don't know what's the reason. But all I know is that like the whatever the things in the paper is, the data is, that is scientific misconduct. That is utter fraud, and we have to speak it very loud. Thank you. And we'll go to the next person in the list. I think we have already answered Arun properly, even though he's a postdoc. He came with a question which was thoroughly debunked here, and it was kind of interesting the way he was going. Okay, the next in my list is Manjunath. Manjunath, please go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, do you have a compilation of scientific trials which have debunked homeopathy? Second question is, how do we record the failures of homeopathy in India? Because most of them don't give a bill, don't give a prescription. There are no laws to regulate them. These are my two questions. And to add on your points, the pay for Ayush doctors is equal, has to be equal to the doctors of evidence-based medicine as per Supreme Court. And nanoparticles theory that nanoparticles are there and in the medicine is also used by Ayurveda people. Third point is now there is an institution of advanced dermatology in Kasargod of Kerala, where they have uh, proposed an integrated medicine approach for elephantiasis. This is not related to our present discussion. Maybe can be taken up for some other session. So can somebody answer my two questions? If we have a compilation of such scientific trials which debunk homeopathy, maybe we can make a YouTube video or some website where these list of these trials can be put up, and so that we can share it to other people easily.
Okay, the question is clear. I can answer two of those questions. The first is regarding is there any compilation of all these things. So everybody in the audience who again has a device can easily check science-based medicine or Harriet Hall. HARRIET, Harriet Hall, science-based medicine. So this is a website actually which nicely debunks all the papers and put a lot of evidence or body of evidence which actually is in contradicting to anything which is pseudoscience, not just homeopathy alone. So if you go to the science-based medicine, go to homeopathy, you can read, and there are so many papers, systematic reviews, meta-analysis, RCTs, individualized homeopathic medicines, veterinary, you name it, where there has been tons of evidence which shows it do not work, and they have compiled everything there. And that is only a list, and that is not yet updated. There are so many new things yet to come. So the question you asked is very valid. We are still trying to have such an effort to put everything in one place so that people can go and check. But at the moment, one thing I can refer is science-based medicine. Go and check the page, and you can see all these tons of evidences which already disproves that it is nothing more than a placebo. The second thing which you asked about the nanoparticles and the probable presence of nanoparticles in Ayurveda. Well, I mean, it could be like, like Ayurveda don't do crazy dilutions like homeopathy. So I mean, maybe it can have any size of particles, nanoparticles, or maybe I don't know, microparticles, or even just even in the crude forms, whatever it is. So, but that is not the relevance here. Okay, there is an interruption. I'm just going to mute the mic of the last person who entered. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the whole point is that like whether extremely diluted beyond the
No,
Avogadro
no,
limit
no. My
is
question,
there is there
my question was not on nanoparticles. I just added on that even Ayurveda people use the theory of nanoparticles. That's all. My second question was, how do we record the failures of homeopathy in India? Because 9 out of 10 patients, they don't improve with homeopathy. They use modern medicines, the evidence-based medicine along with homeopathy, and that's how the patients get some kind of improvement. Because there is no bill, no prescription, no laws to regulate them, how do we record these failures of homeopathy in India?
So I don't know, is there any excuse me, is there any central authority which is recording everybody who come to the modern medicine doctor who has a past experience of taking homeopathy and never recovered, and this has been documented, and whether it has been done in a proper manner? I don't think so anybody's taking the effort for that, or it's not there. But at the moment there is enough evidence from other countries and from other trials and from meta-analysis and systematic reviews where it has been shown not to be there. Maybe somebody who has practiced homeopathy like Shantanu and Arif can say whether do you guys take notes of people who come to the clinic and did not recover, and whether it was recovered, it was mentioned in a book or in a document. Maybe you can add some inputs to that. Thank you.
Yeah, can I add to that?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Shantanu,
Who's
Shantanu,
going
please go.
first? Arif?
Shantanu, please go.
Thank you, Arif. Thank you, Arif. There are several questions. First of all, compilations about the ineffectiveness of homeopathy are very much around. They are available on the net. There are many cross-sectional, there are many meta-analytical studies available. As far as the Indian journals are concerned, there are journals which are sort of dedicated to homeopathy. They are not there. The purpose is not to analyze homeopathy, but to promote it. just like the Ayush ministry. So it is very, very unlikely that they'll ever accept a paper which debunks ideas that are propagated, that the foundation stones of homeopathy. All journals, why even modern medicine journals have what is called as a positivity bias, whereas the editors will report and accept papers that give some positive, helpful results rather than papers which tell that medicine A did not work for a condition B. So that aspect is there across sciences. As far as recording the failures of homeopathic management in India, that's a very, very challenging task. And that, in fact, is something that happens automatically. When you try to record success and you can't, you actually have recorded a failure. But a systematic approach towards recording things is so very poor in India in general, and even poorer in the homeopathic community, because they really don't know what to do with the truth when it is revealed. Suppose if your findings tell you that homeopathy doesn't work, what do you do about it? Because homeopathy, according to homeopaths, is gospel truth, and there is nothing that can disprove homeopathy. So they are in fact in a quandary. Most of the patients who receive homeopathic medicine in India receive a mix, because they are told that they continue with whatever medicine they are taken, and this homeopathic medicine will help them heal, will remove the root cause, will improve their immunity, will do things faster for them, and things like that. Also, when a person approaches homeopathy, it is usually for some chronic disorder. You know, the advertisements will say for Zunat and Asadhya Vyadhi, that is very old and insurmountable, incurable diseases, chronic and incurable diseases. So when the patient himself or herself has accepted and defined the condition as chronic and incurable, hardly any outcome, success, or positive outcome is expected even by the patient. The patients go there for the placebo effect, they get it, and they're happy about it. Finally, modern medicine has a system of revoking drugs of a callback in their post-marketing survey. Suppose if I use some, say, COVID vaccine, and I find out that certain pregnant patients that come to me and have received the vaccine have an increased chance of having an anomalous baby, I have a
Super,
mechanism
super.
of reporting this particular thing, and that vaccine or the drug is retracted following many such report backs, and this is called post-marketing survey. And many drugs have been retracted back from the market because of this particular system. This system is practically lacking in homeopathy and in Ayush pathies in general. That is the reason why it is very, very difficult to pin down the uselessness of these sciences, especially in India. Thank you. Over to Dr. Arif.
Yeah, thank you, Shantanu. I believe the question asked here has a very important aspect. That is whether there is a mechanism to analyze the failures in a clinical setting. I think that's the crux of that question. So one part of that question is already answered, that there's no such a thing called pharmacovigilance in homeopathy. That is to assess the way a medicine is working, and is there any problems created by a medicine, how it is functioning, how a post-market study, that's not there available in homeopathy. So that's regarding the drug. But when you come to the assessment of success and failures in a clinical setting, I don't think that's the usual thing that is done in a scientific world, unless it is a part of a clinical trial or any such pre-designed study. So otherwise that's not done. And if that is not a part of a pre-designed study, either it is as a retrospective study or a prospective study, in that case any doctor can himself assess his own cases, and he can come up with a conclusion that, okay, my practice is going in a good manner, I'm getting good cases, and all my cases are getting cured, so I'm having more success and less failures. He can have a personal assessment. Other than that, there's no such data available, and I don't think there's a mechanism unless it is a part of a clinical trial or such already that type of studies mentioned, it's not going to happen. That's not the way we assess the failures. Assessing failures, that's not the way we do things. In after applying something, in science, we apply something based on evidence. That's why we call it as evidence-based medicine. And even after applying that medicinal intervention or surgical intervention based on that evidence-based data, that kind of data, and even after that, we are observing the failures and success, and then that is used as a data to reshape or to repurpose the drugs or some activities like that. But here in homeopathy, there's no such thing because we don't have an evidence-based data, and so we cannot expect something that can happen in a clinical setting to assess that application of that medicine. So this is what is happening here. So I think the answer to that question is that there's no mechanism, and having a mechanism like that is not the way science operates. Okay.
Thanks. So please compile such data. I mean, what I'm telling is the scientific trials which debunk homeopathy. If there is a compilation that can be shared along when you post this, that will be useful.
Sure,
We
sure.
can share it with our friends, family, everyone. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure. Actually, as Libin has rightly pointed out, we have already such database of such studies already available online, and mostly they are
Yeah,
from
but they are
outside India.
science
But
journals mostly.
yeah,
It's a little difficult to find them. If you can compile and
yeah,
put it out
that's what
somewhere,
I'm. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
that's what I'm.
Manjunath, I would like to add here. Please check out this site by Professor Edzard Ernest.
Ernst. Yeah.
Professor Edzard Ernest. He actually compiles all the latest homeopathy publications and debunks them. He was himself a homeopath and a professor of complementary medicine in Exeter in the UK. And please visit visit his website. He's on Twitter also. He debunks almost every paper that comes out. He's one of the best out there. So this site actually gives you a lot of data. Edzard Ernest.
Yeah.
I think we'll go on to the next person.
One thing, Abhi.
Yeah, Abhishek.
One thing, Abhi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to tell something that is, as part of our activities of MESH, that is Mission for Ethics and Science in Healthcare, we are planning for such a database for to make it locally available, that so that people can come and go through all those papers and to take an informed decision regarding all these kind of alternative systems and pseudoscientific practices. So we are planning for that. So soon you can expect that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next in our list is Abhishek. So Abhishek, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. I have three questions. So, can I ask one by one of them with
Yes,
your
please.
permission? Okay. Thank you, Libin, sir. So, my first question is, so as you said, like if an student of Ayurvedic finds out that like he gets to know he's still studying, he gets to know that it's all pseudoscience, and he doesn't want to pursue it, so he will be facing lots of backlash, and a general perception is always there that you have already wasted so many years, you have wasted maybe 3 or 4 years of your life. So, and there's a lot of backlash from the society. So how can these students cope up in their life? Thank you, sir.
So, Abhishek, thanks for asking this question. In fact, many people who actually practice homeopathy and other alternative system during the course of their career have self-realized this, and some of them have actually even asked a couple of these people who are already in the panel these questions. My advice is like it's very tough to give an advice at the moment, but there are other options like either going into research or doing other courses which is also approved and more scientific, like they can take either nursing or they can study B Farm or many other options. But maybe somebody who has already done this, maybe a better input can be given by Arif. Arif, you have anything to add on that?
I think I missed a point, something from that question. Can you please give me a gist of that?
Yeah, so basically Abhishek was asking for the people who are already doing these courses in Ayurveda and homeopathy and who comes to realize it's a pseudoscience, what are the possibilities of them to navigate their career so that they can do something really meaningful and something more scientific?
Yeah, okay. I would suggest that to you, that those people who are already in the colleges and they are doing that courses, they can just have an aptitude test to test how what sort of professions that they are mostly apt to, like uh, some administrative positions or some research positions or some teaching positions. So if you have an idea of that, you can go for some postgraduate courses after completing the BHMS. That's the best thing which I would suggest. If you are in the first year, you can even think of dropping the course and going for a legitimate course in other field of science, or maybe in any other course as a bachelor's degree. So that's what I always suggest for such questions asked by the people, the students and such students from the colleges. I think that gives a clear picture.
Thank you, Arif sir. My
Yeah.
second question is, why are the medicines of uh, uh, the homeopathy usually sweet?
Okay. That sweetness of that medicine is the sweetness carried by the vehicle. It's not the medicine's sweetness. Okay. In homeopathy, you have a vehicle and you add medicine onto that. That's how it is dispensed. So what you are taking is the vehicle and it's not the medicine actually. So that sugar pills, it's made of sugar and some lactose and such substances. So it is basically sweet in taste. That's why it is sweet for you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So my third question is that, like, when these research papers are published, the general audience usually don't know if it is conducted properly or not, or if there was any bias during the experiment. And because most people can't understand much of the research papers, and they don't know how it should have been done, so they don't get to know like how was it done wrong, or where did they go wrong. So how can the general audience uh, like know if the research paper is can be trusted or not?
Actually, yeah, I'll just give a point and Libin can take over that question, I think. So, one point which I would like to add here is that research papers, publications, and reading that, giving out the required information to the policymakers, these are the main duty of the research body to make the policies based on these research papers and the data available, and to make policies for the citizens. That's the duty of the politicians or the lawmakers. So we have to see both these aspects of science, that is science as it is and the application aspect. So here what we are talking about is purely the scientific aspect. The application level, the political and the other lawmaking aspect, that has entirely that requires entirely a different discussion, because that's the area where India is lagging behind today. Because if any of the governments decides to go with the scientific information, that moment homeopathy will end in our country. Not just homeopathy, many such practices will end in our country. But that's not happening because our governments, what they are doing, that even Gomutra is served in the intensive care units today. So we cannot expect such a move from the politicians or the lawmakers today. So we are discussing all these things today, and I think Libin can add more to that. Please, Libin.
Yeah, Arif actually rightly pointed it out, and what the question which Abhishek asked is very relevant because it's not the responsibility of a commoner to look into all these papers and understand is a paper factually done properly, what are the errors in the paper and everything. But the thing is that in case there are, for example, previously Arun came and told about this nature paper, right? Like, since it was in nature and since it was bringing a lot of controversy, this was thoroughly reproduced and thoroughly debunked and rebuted, and we provided the evidence of all these rebutals, and it is a detailed article in Wikipedia, so that is all good. But in many low tier journals, and some of them are even predatory, you can see so much publications from homeopathy and for any other field of science, which not everybody has the time to go and debunk and write a rebuttal and write to editor. This is extremely paid tasking process. So as Arif pointed out, it should be the responsibility of the scientific body to advise the government what is the evidence based on all the studies, and the government should be making policies based on that. Unfortunately, in our country, this is not done properly, and that is why we are all suffering, and we are having these discussions at the moment. And as Arif rightly pointed out, if the scientific body clearly says that, hey, these are not supported by science, these are actually studies which are fraud or misconduct and do not support these, then obviously that will make a change. But unfortunately, maybe the scientific body who is at the moment advising the government are still under some other influence, or they are not really doing the right thing. That's all I can say at the moment. Yeah, it's a sad situation. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you guys. I just wanted to ask one more thing. Like in the previous few conversations, one of you people said that there's a Telegram channel. I just know the name so that I can join it.
I can maybe you can check the profile of Anuba Roshan here, and it's written. The Telegram channel is written over there. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I think the next for us is Ebin.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so just I want to add a couple of things. Like I think Dr. Arif was telling about the statistical significance. Actually, it's on top of that we need the substantial significance. That's once the variable x changes, we need a result in variable y. Even if it shows statistical significance, with the substantial significance we can break it. And one more addition to the point CR was telling, like how can a haircut, how can a hair can be used in a medicine? So actually, if you see the origin of homeopathy, right? Before origin of homeopathy, there were some of the systems of magic. So that is actually called the associative magic and the similarity magic. Similarity magic is also known as homeopathic magic. You can simply search in Google homeopathic magic, you will get details of that. So similarity magic says that like cures, creates like, and here it says that like cures like. And the associative magic says that something is associated. For example, hair is associated. That association will stay forever. So that is actually total nonsense. So based on that, they came up that molecule get associated with this water, and that will be taken. That characteristics will be taken forever. So those are some of the pure pseudosciences. I have made a video, science or magic, homeopathy, science or magic, and it was heavily reported, and it was never came up in the light. And another point I want to add is I was in the audience, I think 2-3 weeks back. So one of the homeopathic doctor was telling the current golden thing is the RCT. So in future, once the pharmacogenomics and the precision medicines came into the picture, this will go off because we cannot do the RCT. So that was absolutely wrong thing because we already have the nested precision RCT testing already there. That model is already there for this. So I couldn't answer that time. And coming to the morality side, if you see the rules or in Italy or anywhere, there is something known as so if you are not giving the modern medicine and if you are giving homeopathic medicine, the charge given to parents is actually manslaughtering. So it was actually almost equivalent to killing their kid. But in India, there is no rule as such which is there to prevent this. And in addition to one more point, Arif was telling about the mesmerism. So actually, what happened in Germany and France, right? France, there were great rulers, like for example, the King Louis XVI, and the great scientists were there, like the Benjamin Franklin. So actually, they debunked most of the stuffs in France. So if these guys were born in Germany, right, there could there could have been multiple things, not just homeopathy. There could have been number of things which we were following now. So actually the rulers, right? Rulers has to take the right decision, and I don't think we can do nothing more. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think your question is clear and the comments are clear. But one of the thing which you mentioned, I just need to emphasize that. So the way homeopaths confuse public is by saying that homeopathy is extremely individualized and it's so personalized. The way you do RCTs in modern science does not apply to homeopathy. This is absolutely rubbish. And the reason is there have been so many studies which has been done by RCTs where one group got placebo and the other group got individualized homeopathic medicines with It's based on whatever symptoms they had. They gave individualized homeopathic medicines, individualized potencies and everything, and still it failed. So there are so many evidence. So just for a quick recap, I can bring up three examples. One is published in 2021 by Samit De, a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled pilot trial of individualized homeopathic medicines for cutaneous warts. They didn't find any effect. The second one, which came in 2021 by Sovic, that efficacy of individualized homeopathic medicines in intervening the progression of pre-hypertension to hypertension, a double-blind randomized placebo control, again no effect. And the third one is in 2021, individualized homeopathic medicines in chronic rhinosinusitis, randomized double-blind placebo trial, again no effect. There is even a systematic review which even summarizes all these studies and even more, and concluded that even with individualized homeopathic medicines, where the people who were given homeopathic medicines were given the choice of the medicine potency based on individualization, and the other group was just given placebo, and still there was no effect. So that is actually a bogus claim. And anybody in the audience who ever happened to listen that the RCTs cannot be done on homeopathy, they are just bluffing. Thank you.
Yeah, I might add to that. I mean, if you actually use homeopathy medicines in an RCT, it actually becomes a double-blind placebo controlled trial. It's because there is no actual medicine happening there. And this is very evident because we have had decades of information saying that homeopathy at best can act like a placebo only, and it has no medical effect. So it's actually a placebo controlled trial. And any RCT that says homeopathy is actually superior than placebo, that RCT is 100% without doubt either data fraud or data faked. There is no doubt about this.
Yeah, right. But I was telling that this point they were pointing to the modern medicine. This one of the homeopathic doctor, and in future we cannot do because we are going for individualized medicine, right? Even modern medicine is moving into that path once the pharmacogenomics is up and running. So somebody was pointing those kind of points because somebody hear this, right? They will get misguided. So I just want to add that.
No, exactly the point that we should have such discussions in the open, because there is nothing known as individualized medicine. There is nothing known as precision medicine. Even though we have these terms, we actually don't have definitions of it still. Homeopathy actually, homeopathy is like a cockroach. It knows how to survive and, the ages. So previously, homeopathy survived because there was an allopathic practice, which was actually very crude. Then homeopathy started surviving because it became some sort of a religion and a cult. This is what Kent did. And now homeopathy is surviving now because it is now part of integrated care, and people consider it as something safer and more effective than actual modern medicine, because there is a lot of chemophobia associated with current homeopathy practice. I myself have faced many patients coming and telling me they went for homeopathy because the homeopath themselves told that modern medicines are full of chemicals and we don't use any chemicals and it is completely safe. You can actually see that all the children in Kerala or in the south of India use homeopathy medicine. So what is the harm in going for homeopathy? These are all the twisted tactics that homeopaths use to lure in patients as a business, because homeopathy has no practice of patient care. Just few weeks back when we had a discussion with a homeopath, we asked him very simply, how do you treat constipation because of a thyroid disease? If patient has low thyroid function, hypothyroidism, how do you treat constipation? Ultimately, his answer was that we don't need to look at hypothyroidism. We just want to treat constipation with opium. And opium actually worsens constipation. And this was his answer. They have absolutely no clue about what disease they are treating. And this is the way they actually move on their business. So this is what I think the general people should actually know about homeopathic practice.
Yeah, thank you.
I think next in our list, if I remember, is Raghu. Raghu, please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Libin. Yeah, so I was in and out of this discussion, so probably I might have missed it if it was already mentioned, but I think it deserves a mention. How and a historical context of why homeopathy worked at some point in time, and work, I put it in quotes, of course, because it doesn't really work. Because the only time in history when it really actually gave relief and actually made things better was what I think Dr. Abbey pointed out during the days of allopathy, when people were using bloodletting and scorching and starving and and all kinds of actual active harm doing in the name of medicine. So, and most of the times when you have somebody just laying off of you and let you heal, body cures most of the non chronic or non-fatal kind of diseases, and that gives the perception of homeopathy actually working. Which, if you think about it in that context, in that historical context, homeopathy was really working. And from then we have moved on, ages ahead, and homeopathy is still holding on to that. That piece of the puzzle needs to be told, to explain to people who stick on saying that how did this come about by a German scientist in Europe and it's still surviving, and how did it get so popular, and why would it get so popular if it was not working? So yes, it was working, quote unquote working, in a way, because what was prevalent back in the day was so much worse and actually killing people. So I think maybe it was already mentioned, and everybody in this panel, esteemed panel, already knows this. But I thought, for the sake of the audience, I should add that. Thank you.
Thanks, Raghu. I think next we have Mahesh here.
Libin, you're giving me a pass.
Sorry, did I miss somebody?
Yeah, Manoj.
No, this is
Manoj.
Manoj.
Oh, sorry,
I
Manoj.
can
I'm
you
so
Manoj.
can pass.
sorry. Sorry, my
Maybe
bad.
we missed.
Apologize, Manoj. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I also joined late, and I don't know if the morality of the room allows a speaker who's not a panelist to make a comment on what one of the other people that joined from the audience said. But if I may, given that leeway, I would want to comment on, and it's very suitable or appropriate from the content of the title of the room, in terms of hidden aspects of homeopathy. So there was a person who came in, and he said, and his topic was spiritual therapy, where he said that there's a certain kind of energy that is used in spiritual therapy, which is unknown to modern science. Kaipali asked about what kind of energy it is, and he was saying that that's a kind of energy which works outside the realm of science, and it is hidden, and he was not willing to talk more about it. I think homeopathy is very similar in that respect, though modern homeopaths try to ascribe reasons such as quantum mechanics, or you know uh, nanoparticles, or even superstring theory to justify their claim that homeopathy works. The original theory that Dr. Hahnemann had was that homeopathy is based on the idea of vital force, and vital force is again a kind of invisible force or energy that is there in the human body that manages the functions of all the human systems that work together. So in that sense, I think the claim that the person made is very similar to that of homeopathy, that all of these things are hidden, and therefore, they also come under the purview of the Magical Remedies Act of 1954, where you are not supposed to make claims of cures, or of certain kinds of diseases. And in this case, the gentleman was even saying that while he does it for no material gain, like he doesn't claim a fee, he doesn't charge a fee. At the same time, he was claiming that he cures cancer using spiritual healing or spiritual methods, which is actually a punishable offense under Indian law, the Magical Remedies Act. So I think it's similar in the case of homeopathy as well, except that the due diligence that need to be applied in kind of validating the claim of homeopathy and the basis on which it was structured was not really done well by the health department or whoever is responsible at that point in time, or until this point in time. That is the reason why it is still existing. So that's one point. The other quick point I want to make was around the question that Dr. Manoj Kamath was asking Libin about why such awards are given to people who are, doing experiments and claiming unscientific things under the auspices of the Ayush Ministry. I think the obvious reason is that in India, the whole country, or at least some parts of the country, have already become a banana republic. So without acknowledging that, we cannot address this question. So we have to really state the obvious, that things are not well in our country, particularly when you see things like Ayush Ministry trying to justify, forces that are not there, energies which are not there, and trying to validate pseudosciences. We are living in a banana republic, and the objective of discussions like this is to call this out and make it apparent that the people need to understand that this is happening really amongst us, and we need to do really rally around trying to tell our politicians, our the representatives who are making the law, that this is not okay, and this is not something that we do in a in a regular democracy where the constitution asks us to forward the idea of scientific temper. So I'd stop there. Thank you.
Who's next?
Uh,
Libin?
yeah. Sorry,
Mahesh.
I was actually out briefly.
Mahesh,
So,
I think so.
Manoj, did you had a question or was it
Oh,
more
sorry.
like a
No, I
statement?
just made a comment. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sure, sure.
Mahesh.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think Mahesh is next. Would you
Yeah.
like to say something, Mahesh?
Mahesh, are you there?
Mahesh, are you listening? Probably you need to step out and come back. We're not able to hear you. Yes.
Am I audible now? Hello?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Tell me
I
Yes.
now.
do have a question. Yeah, so I'm aware that homeopathy is not only used in on humans, but it's also used on animals as well as medicines. So I would like to ask, how is it different for animals? What is the need for veterinary homeopathy? That's my first question. And the second question is, does it not violate the ethical guidelines that we use for animal testing, the three R's that we commonly use of replacement, uh, reduction, and refinement. By that, I hope everybody is aware of that. If not, I'll just quickly explain. We need to replace whenever we can an animal by another non-living body like a computer, if we can run the test. And if that is not possible, then we need to minimize the usage of animals when we do our testing. And the last one is a refinement. We need to inflict minimal pain or suffering to the animal that is being used. That is the refinement. uh, does homeopathy not violate or the three R's that is being used? That is a question. Thank you.
So, regarding the first question, whether veterinary and homeopathy, do you know want to comment about that, Arif? I can take the second part. Arif or Shantanu, the why. I don't even know how you guys take symptoms in an animal. Like the detailed symptoms, like and yeah. So just go ahead with answering that, and then I can take the second part of that, the ethical part.
First of all, most of the disorders, whether in animal, and the same question can be asked about children as well. Why do children get better with homeopathic medicine? In the same line as why do animals get better with homeopathic medicine if it is just a placebo? The part of the answer is provided by the fact that animals are also aware of the way they are being treated by the pet owners. They are extremely sensitive to the way they are being treated. So if they believe that something is being done to help them through this particular illness, they will, albeit temporarily, feel better. The illness itself will get over, take its natural course, or be healed by whatever other interventions that are being made. The same applies to children. A lot of disorders, especially the minor ones, get better in the natural course of the disease. Secondly, animals do have reflexes. The famous Pavlov experiment is very well known, and I'm sure the audience knows about it. That you ring a bell before every feed, and the animal starts salivating just by ringing the bell and giving no feed after a certain amount of time. So they associate certain actions with certain responses, and this is also seen in children as well as in animals. And placebo effect, if it is not seen in animals, it is certainly seen in the owners of the animals, who might report that their pets or their livestock feel better with whatever intervention is being done. So all these things have been looked into, and there is no evidence to suggest that homeopathy works in children. Neither is there any evidence to suggest that it works in animals. Of course, being a human doctor, I don't think I'm qualified enough to talk about veterinary aspects of the pseudoscience of homeopathy. Thank you.
Yeah, can I add something to that?
Sure, Arif, and then I'll take on.
Okay. I think Matthew is that our veterinarian Matthew here?
No, I
Libin?
don't think Matthew is now in the at the moment he's in the panel or in the audience. So
Oh,
Matthew is a veterinarian, yes, he's
yeah,
right,
yeah.
but he's not at the
Okay.
moment here.
Okay. Anyway, regarding this homeopathic treatment for the animals and for the kids, the most important thing that happens in animals is that we call it as the classical conditioning and the observer bias. That is the most important two things which we usually associate with the effects of homeopathy. Why we say that, why we feel that homeopathy is seemingly effective in animals. So these two are the main reasons. The explanation to that is already given by Dr. Shantanu, so I'm not elaborating on that. We call it as the conditioning effect, the classical conditioning, and it was demonstrated by the Pavlov's experiment. It beautifully elaborated, beautifully it is demonstrated by that experiment. You can have a look at it online. So these two are the main two points which can explain why homeopathy is seemingly effective in children and for the animals. The observer bias and the classical conditioning. These two are the most important things. Thank you.
Thanks, Arif. So I want to add one more point to that, especially since Mahesh has asked why is it given, and Shantanu and Arif nicely explained about the placebo effects and also the possible bias and everything. But there are studies done on this too. So I'm quoting a study which is a comparative effectiveness of individualized homeopathy and antibiotics in the treatment of bovine clinical mastitis. It was done in 2018. The first author is Diana Keller. It's a randomized control trial. So the most important thing is that there are cows which had mastitis, and they were either given placebo or homeopathy or antibiotics. Imagine, okay, that is a kind of the study, and the conclusion was that the study results implied that the effectiveness of individualized homeopathy does not go beyond placebo, and successful treatment is highly dependent upon the mastitis and the pathogen. And they really recommend that, hence, antimicrobial or alternative remedies should not be used. Okay, so this is a kind of conclusion they had. So the people have done this again, individualized homeopathy and randomized clinical trial in animals, no effect. Okay, the second part is regarding the ethics part. This is a very good question because Mahesh, you're also a vegan and you're very aware about all the kinds of possible cruelties we have. So why do you even do why do you even harm an animal further by giving something which is ineffective already? So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. Whenever an animal is sick, the best way is to diagnose it properly and to give the proper scientific or the evidence-based medicine so that the animal can find cure in the fastest way possible with minimal injuries and side effects. And giving homeopathy, which is like, as I just mentioned, there is no benefit beyond the placebo, right? Is in a way harm, and I do not deny with that. But you have to keep in mind that, like, today we are doing the same thing for humans. So when you bring up the animals, that is even down the ladder. So I don't know how to explain that part, but you are right. There is an ethical concern to that. And in fact, even the studies which they are still trying to do in mouse models and everything, to show, or to not to show, actually, to really try to do some fraud, to say that like it works in animals, is still an ethical concern, because it's a thoroughly debunked science, not science, pseudoscience, and the principles are against everything what we know, and still they are sacking mice, hundreds of them in many parts in the world, just to study some effect of homeopathy in that. So these are all very valid questions, and unfortunately I don't have an answer for that, but your question is very valid.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Thank you. there is an ethical committee to approve any research process, right? So how does a homeopathic research pass through an ethical committee check? What are the guidelines that they should satisfy to get the approval? Thank you.
Yeah, I can briefly comment about that because in every country, the animal ethics committee is slightly different, and even though they are different, they have still some common concerns about how the animal has been treated. So a lot of researchers do study in mice models or in any animal models tumors. Like you induce tumor in the animal, and then you try to study it over a time and try to give therapies and so forth. There are some strict regulations where they say, okay, we looked at the protocol and they're going to they are going to induce a tumor, so obviously the mouse is going to become sick, and they're going to try a drug and see whether it can make the tumor a little bit better. uh, so there are still guidelines which says that, okay, for example, if the body weight is below or is declining beyond 20% or something, you cannot still continue the experiment. You have to do the euthanization. You have to do the you have to sack the animal. But some experiments demand the study over time, and sometimes the panel will really look into this and say, okay, there are some concerns about this. The animal might be going through a lot of pain and suffering, but they look at a bigger cause, and the bigger cause has to be strongly justified by some evidence which we have that the probably a drug is a therapeutic one or something through in vitro experiments in the lab. So when you submit any proposal to the animal ethics committee, and when they first look on some of the in vitro data and see the effectiveness or something, and they also look the kind of experiments you're doing on the mouse. The main thing is, giving a homeopathic thing to a mouse may not have anything to do with the overall health of the mouse, but the much more challenging is the tumor models. We specifically inject the tumor into the mice, we get a solid tumor, and then we try then challenge with the medicine. These are the kinds which are more rigorous protocols where they really make sure that the mouse. So even when in our animal facility, the technician sends an email, okay, the mouse is not looking very good, it has been going on like this, and we cannot continue experiment. So the researchers or whoever the principal investigator is, you need to step in and make a decision whether you continue the experiment or not, or we have to terminate it. So that happens. So that is how things are going at the moment. So they do check for the burden on the animal too, in the animal ethics. I hope that answered.
Yeah, so I just want to add on to this. I mean, we spoke about homeopathy for pet animals and domesticated animals and all. But I don't know if you guys know about this, but there is something known as agri homeopathy, where they are using homeopathy in agricultural field. And I think this is actually working. It's actually working homeopathy, because what they're doing is they're giving homeopathy to these coconuts to improve their crops and all that, to paddies and rice fields and all that. And that actually works because they're giving water. They're giving water and they're seeing these crops grow, and they are saying homeopathy works in agricultural field. So that is something that is very much upcoming. We have had a lot of posters and advertisements on homeopathy use in agriculture, and this is an upcoming field. Ultimately, I think in a few decades time, people will understand, even homeopaths will understand that homeopathy has no role in actual human and animal healthcare, and they will move on to agriculture, and they can actually have a good practice there, because they are going to give water to the crops, and that will be excellent. And that is what I want, because there should be some use of homeopathy, right? And this is where we are moving on to. So I think that's the whole point.
So I think we need to move on a bit more faster because we wanted to wrap up in another 30 minutes. So let's move faster to the next person. Next is Anup.
Hello. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to have one question. I mean, is there a legal recourse for this? I mean, countries after countries are banning this kind of treatment, and is there any PAL pending in the court, or is there something failed in court? And if it is failed in court, I'm curious to know what is the judgment from the court. And also, one of the earlier speakers said, our constitution, I mean, says we need to inculcate scientific temper and all. So, but somebody has moved any PAL for this? I just want to know. Thank you.
Yeah, can I add to that, Libin?
Yes, Arif.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, so usually people ask the same question, whether homeopathy is banned anywhere in this world. Actually, that usage of that word banning is not the right one. It's like homeopathy was present all over the world, especially in the West, and it's from the West that came to India. So, what happened to those places was uh, later few studies were conducted, independent bodies assessed the efficacy of homeopathy independently, and they gave some verdicts, and based on that the governments in those countries came forward to control, they came forward to stop the funding, the government public funding given for such practices, and even the medical reimbursement given for the treatments taken by the people for these kind of alternative systems, especially homeopathy, acupuncture, and herbal systems. So this is what happened in those places. So now, in such places, one of the best examples is the UK, where the NHS was giving a complete support for these kind of treatments in that country, and that was stopped in 2016. So that's what happened in those countries. So that's the one part of the question. I think that's answered. The second part is whether there is any PIL or any such court verdicts pending. Actually, what we are talking here is about the scientific problem, and that should be dealt in a manner where the scientific aspects should be addressed, and that should be made available to the policymakers and to educate them and to make them aware that this is the problem. So here what we are doing is we are questioning the scientific aspects, and we are using such information, and we are moving forward to question the public funding. That is the move taken by the government to increase the budget allocations for these kind of alternative systems should be reduced, or should be controlled, or should be stopped at any cost. That's the question which we raise, and that's the kind of debate that we wish to create. And at the end of that, even one day, we can expect that such an action will be initiated in our country to stop funding the public money being used for such practices in our country. So we cannot ban anything. We cannot ban such a thing. We are expecting to stop public funding. That's what we are expecting. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I think Ranjit, did you have a chance to speak, Ranjit?
Yeah, I'm Ranjit. My question is, by no way we can prove homeopathy is effective. But my question is how it could survive over the centuries. Maybe it is completing nearly 2 centuries. How it could survive over the centuries in at least in some part of the countries, some part of the world.
So this is what I was talking about before, because homeopathy actually finds reasons to survive like a cockroach. I was mentioning that before, because a cockroach will also survive a nuclear winter. That is what people say. It's one of the best survivalist insects there is. So same way, when allopathy was the norm in ancient Europe, homeopathy actually came as some sort of a solution for allopathy, which was very crude. Now you move down the ages, science has gone on another line, finding discoveries, testing, and experimenting, and homeopathy started surviving on piggybacking on science, saying that actual science. Even now, this goes on. People are saying that actual modern science is chemicals. It causes a lot of side effects, and the same that allopathic principles are still being handed to the patients even now. I mean, if you look at India per se, I think India is only country where we still use the term allopathy for a modern medicine doctor. It is absolute rubbish. It is insulting. So allopathy is dead when Samuel Hahnemann died. So that is end of it. But even now they use that term allopathy, meaning that there is so much of side effects and everything associated with current modern medicine practice, and that is how homeopathy still holds on in many people's minds. And also, especially when it comes to children, parents want them to have the safest treatment option, and so here is homeopathy, which is not at all like allopathy, and that is what is happening even now. And homeopathy will still survive into the future, because now they have started to learn new terms like nanoparticles and molecular imprinting. Now there will be some genomics, everything coming up, so they will latch on to these new terms and then still keep surviving into the future. But general population should know that this is all completely deceptive. It is complete fraud. I think maybe Arif can also add on to this question.
Yeah, thank you, Abhi. You are given clearly the scientific aspects of how and why the homeopathy survived in our country or in other parts of the world. And another reason why it is still surviving, and the best form of survival is seen in India, and in Kerala we see that in its best forms. So one reason for that, apart from the scientific reasons, is the social reason. That is, today, if you take the homeopathic profession, you can see, apart from the doctors practicing in the, you can see many other non-clinical staff and many other people being a part of this profession. So this nonsense or this belief system is now institutionalized to a large extent that it's now a social reality. So if you are trying to ban it, or the word which you use, or if you are trying to control it in any manner, that is going to be a big social problem. So that's one reason what is hindering any kind of government or policy actions. So that's one reason why it is surviving. So we need to look at this problem in two different viewpoints. That is, one as a scientific problem and as a social problem. So we need an action which balance in between to get out of this this big problem. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, also I think the pattern of survival of religions through like thousands of years is kind of similar to the pattern of survival for these kind of pseudosciences, and seeing the trajectory of religions that have been existing for thousands of years, we can maybe assume that things like Ayurveda and homeopathy can also survive uh, for many coming maybe decades or centuries.
Yeah, definitely, because the driving force in for a religion, if it is the spirituality or the fear of the hell and the love for the heaven, for the alternative systems, the biggest driving force or the biggest idea behind that is the chemophobia. So that's the biggest driving force. So so since that is happening here, we can expect that this can they can exist here for much more many years to come, just like the religions. Okay.
I think it's better if some
Yeah, I think next is Biju. Can you hear us? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go on.
Thank you. So, one, as someone who's enjoyed the benefits of homeopathy, in that being around or hanging around with homeopathic students while I was in engineering, because the homeopathic college was very near to my engineering college, and they were able to get us the cheapest alcohol. I think people who are in homeopathy would know this, how that is. They were able to sign off as students and doctors and get us. So that is one thing I'd like to say. The second is in 2004, when I got jaundice, and my mom, who had almost 2 decades of experience as a nurse abroad, uh, she decided to give me homeopathic medicine, or yeah, and I'd like to hear, I kind of know what happened there. Maybe somebody can touch point on that. Why, how, for jaundice, I think they still do that for obvious reasons. Maybe touch point on that if someone could. And then I'd like to thank everyone for, taking this debate to a larger audience and speaking in English. I know I hear a lot of you in, in other forums in Malayalam and all. So thank you for doing this in English. And maybe to Arif, one quick question is, Arif, as a ex-homeopath, um, do you
I have
see that
something
fold?
very important to say. I have something very important to say.
Uh, can I finish, or do you want to jump in?
Please wait your turn, Manoj. We'll come to you.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So as an ex-homeopath, do you see that fold increasing, Arif? And I'd love to say thank you. Knowing that you could have made a lot of made money continuing to be in that cult, you chose to step out. So one, do you see that fold increasing? And do you see, because looks like even the people who go into homeopathy to study, there's some interest in medicine, right? They're not able to get into modern science, so they choose this. Is there a easier route, or what can they do? I mean, I think you touch point on this, but maybe specifically to healthcare, are there other things they could do even after they complete or they go through homeopathy? Yeah, so maybe on jaundice and that point with Arif, if I could get some thoughts. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, so Biju, I'll take that point on jaundice. So when we actually say jaundice, a lot of people actually think that jaundice is a disease, which is actually not. Jaundice is actually a symptom. So I would like to know what was the cause for your jaundice. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
And really speaking, I forgot. I think it was some food or something I ate somewhere, or this is in 2004. I
Okay, so
just
yeah,
remember
I
eating
got it.
those
Yeah.
pills. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, food or bad water transmitted jaundice is acute viral hepatitis A or E. They are the foodborne viral hepatitis which can cause jaundice. The best part of getting this kind of jaundice through hepatitis A or E is that they are self limiting, which means with or without homeopathy, that jaundice is going to go away. So even if you did not have that homeopathy medicine, that jaundice would go away. A very less number of patients, I mean, for example, less than 1% of these patients who develop acute viral hepatitis A or E can actually develop something known as acute liver failure. Now that is very dangerous and that actually requires a liver transplantation for survival. But other than that, almost 99% of these patients, they are having a self-limiting course where the jaundice will come down on its own in a few weeks' time. In some patients, it can fluctuate and take up to 12 weeks. And this is very well known. So giving homeopathy in that, so what happens is that you have jaundice and then your jaundice is already on the downslope and you put a homeopathy medicine on top of that. We actually wrongly attribute the improvement in jaundice because of to that homeopathy medicine that was used. And this is very classical of any homeopathy experience that you take. My child had asthma and homeopathy medicine was given, and when my child was 12 years old, asthma is gone. So there is an asthma which actually happens only in childhood and goes away when you actually grow up, and homeopathy did nothing for it. And similarly, there are cases where homeopaths actually give homeopathy for cancers after they take all types of chemotherapy and proper modern medicine management, radiation, everything. They go and take homeopathy, and when the cancer goes into remission, they say that it is because of homeopathy. This is classical false experience based homeopathy propagation, and this is exactly what happened in your case also. So I don't think the jaundice improved because of homeopathy. It was supposed to improve, that is why it improved. Now I think Arif can take the second question. Arif, you are not audible.
Yeah, thank you, Abhi.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you, Abhi. And that's post hoc fallacy that you pointed out very rightly. So coming to the career options after homeopathy, especially in a medical stream, there are certain courses like MSc and some MBAs and some uh, uh, public health courses available. For MSc, you can go for physiology, biochemistry, anatomy, and such subjects are available. And for as an MBA, you can, if you are interested in that, you can go for this hospital administration, and such courses are healthcare administration. Many courses are available these days. And one of the best things which a homeopath can do after BHMS is the public health. Earlier, when I was just coming out of my college days, I tried for this public health and I was not able to get an admission to that because that was only given for an MBBS student. So that was not available those days. But now it is available. Anyone can apply. Public Health Foundation of India is and there are some courses provided by them. So these are some of the courses which is available, and there's a website done by a homeopath himself, and there are some options, some elaborated content there regarding this job opportunities and this higher education opportunities for PHMS students. You can go there. The website name is homeobook.com. Okay.
Arif, thanks for clarifying that. But there is a question which Abhishek has been asking me through the back channel, which is very relevant to what you just answered. So maybe Abhishek, if you want to quickly respond or to ask that question to Arif, I'll come back to you, Biju, in a moment.
Okay.
Yeah, Abhishek, you there?
Okay, thank you, Libin sir. So Arif sir, I'm actually in my first year, and I just my classes I've just completed. I'm just in the first year of Ayurveda, and I've got to know that it's a pseudoscience, and I want to leave, but there is much backlash from my family. So can you please assist me, or and I'm also poor, so my parents won't support me if I'm going to leave the course because they had to pay. So do you have any advice for me?
That's a very difficult situation which you are in right now, because the best way out is to leave the course and go for a better course, but your circumstances is not favorable for that. So in that case, what obviously you can do is to just continue the course and complete that, and after that you can go for any higher education, because you can consider this BAMS course as a basic degree. But these graduation, these degrees are not actually valued outside the country. So that's one problem. But inside India, you can use that degree for many other higher education courses. So that's what I was mentioning just before.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think we can
Thank
go
you.
now to Dr. Vivek.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Abby. When I read this title of the room, The Hidden Science of Homeopathy, I was thinking there will be a lot of homeopathy doctor talking about the greatness of homeopathy. And I was so pleasantly surprised that things were being discussed in much systematic way. Really kudos to you guys that you have put up so much work. And I saw the way people have quoted the research and the studies which are debunking homeopathy. Really, really extremely happy to find this group and be in this group. So thank you so much for that. Now, I want to mention few things here. By the way, I am a doctor who has done my MBBS, and I'm into now wellness education. Basically, I try to help people to prevent lifestyle related issues. And I come across a lot of such people who ask me all kind of questions on this. So I have a view on this, that now, be it homeopathy or a kind of energy healing practices or water memory or magical threads or fish medicines, famous fish medicine of Hyderabad, or even these DMIT, fingerprint related multiple intelligence finders. There's so many such, even chiropractic. Now, chiropractors are becoming very popular in India, bone setters, all these things, the fundamental thing, what I feel is, you know, they are better storytellers. They can tell a story which most people, masses, will buy into. And when it comes to scientific temper, this is going to be a scenario for quite some time that most people, I don't think they have any bad intentions to harm people, but they are not capable, or they have not invested the kind of energy it takes to understand sometimes the deeper aspects of science. We try to find simple answers to difficult questions. Everybody doesn't invest that much in, what the famous author Daniel Kahneman says, type 2 thinking. It's energy consuming. It's not against our it's not our normal nature to dig deeper into things and try to understand things which we do not agree to. And it's not easy for anyone to simply go against the popular social norms. Pseudoscience is more popular than science. That's a fact. And probably it's a bigger business than science. And what I found is, while there are many factors which needs to be countered, and I really like the point that fundamentally the funding which happens through public money should be stopped, because banning may not work. People even smoke cigarette even after knowing that it is bad. So it's not that, see, till there are buyers, sellers will sell it somehow. Government need not be in the picture. So fundamentally we have to raise the scientific temper. And for that, one thing which modern medical science should seriously look into, and it has exposed itself too much during this COVID saga, is that the kind of greed which is unfortunately controlling, and you know the big pharma companies, and the way researches are being manipulated, and the way drugs studies have been manipulated. I'm sure many of you are aware of this book called Bottle of Lies, and there are many books have come now which talks about how pharma industry is manipulating big time the research thing. So what is it causing is it's creating a kind of hate, not just phobia to chemicals, but there is much more than that. When a ordinary man goes to a hospital for a viral fever and comes with a 2 lakh rupee bill, he kind of develops a hate towards the system, and which I would not say that doctors are probably not that responsible, but the system itself. The system is such that for a country like India, we are trying to emulate American healthcare system, which is not working for an extremely rich country like America as well. And that is probably alienating so many people. I've seen even doctors sitting in homeopathy. I mean, qualified doctor, general medicine doctors, they are sitting into webinars of so many such fake doctors who claim, like fruits will cure all, and so many such bunkum we know, right? So fundamentally, number one, there is lack of scientific temper, and number two, there is a part of medicine which is greed ridden, which is making people think about other systems. So that is primary responsibility for anybody who is in medical field to resist, to see that our healthcare system becomes less of disease care system and little more of healthcare system. That is extremely important. I think that is causing a big problem. And this correlation and versus causation, this I don't see practically this will ever go. People, as somebody was just suggesting that, when the viral hepatitis A, which will usually wean off by itself, and people think that homeopathy medicine took it away. This is fundamentally what was a correlation. They people take it as a causation, and this is not going to go, because this is visible not just in homeopathy. This is visible in every aspect of our life. People trust vastu, people break their home for, because some pandit, somebody tells them that this is east or west, or this is the country we live. And not just in this country, these are as prevalent in other countries as in India. I have friends in other countries, and I see many of them believing in all these kind of things. So this is a fundamental problem of humanity, that most people in humanity will not be able to go into deep thinking and understand complicated stories. They will always understand simple stories. So we need to learn to communicate things more effectively, and even before that, we need to actually create our own system with such authenticity that people can trust and find solace in that. Without that, people will always keep going to alternate systems. So that was my two bit. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Vivek Modi. I'm done speaking.
Yeah, Dr. Vivek, thank you for your thoughts on this. I would like to take up one point about what you spoke now, that aspect of greed. So if you actually look at it, it's a very generalizing term that we should not just use only for medicine. Greed is everywhere. Even in cops, in lawyers, you look at any businesses, even in Ayurveda, homeopathy, there is greed. I'll just quote an example because I see patients at the receiving end of pseudoscience. Patients who have been on Ayurveda, homeopathy, they come with severe worsening liver diseases, and I take care of such patients. So what I have seen is that a simple disease like hepatitis B, where you can give a tablet known as tenofovir alphanamide, and that is freely available in government hospitals. They have absolutely no requirement to pay money. It is freely available in government hospitals, state and central government hospitals. They are looted by these Ayurveda and homeopathy practitioners, giving them multiple herbal products over the course of many months, and ultimately landing up with either drug-induced liver injury, herbal liver injury, or cirrhosis and its complications, even up to patients getting treated for hepatitis B and C for almost a year using homeopathy medicines, spending thousands and thousands, and coming up with liver cancers to me. And then they require a liver transplant. So the liver transplant costs somewhere between 15 to 20 lakhs, and in central government hospitals it's much lesser because they have a subsidized system. And you see, that is where the cost comes from. So now the people will say, you see, this guy is offering him a liver transplant the moment he went into a modern medicine hospital, and it's 20 lakhs, while the homeopath was actually treating him for a few thousands per month. See, this is the way things are going. So that greed aspect I don't agree to, because it is there in both sides. And I would actually say that being a pseudoscience, which is harmful to people, the greed, whatever little greed that is, compared to whatever greater greed that you talk about in modern medicine, whatever little greed that greed is a sin. It is a criminal offense, because you are neither treating the patient properly, you are looting the patient, and you are deceiving the patient. So I would suggest that greed term be actually dropped off, and actually it is not a good argument for us to portray modern medicine sensibly. And this is my opinion on about the greed part of it. I think Libin can maybe speak on it a little more.
Sure, thanks, Abhi. So another thing which Vivek was mentioning, especially about the cost, the 2 lakhs, and and also he briefly touched upon USA being such a rich country, the healthcare being wrong. So I live in Canada now, and as you know, we have only one neighbor, which is USA, and we closely watch things happening in USA. For a very long time, USA has been known to be having a broken healthcare system. And if you know that all these political debates about healthcare and free healthcare, so they don't have insurances which are fully covering many things. So before I came to Canada, I was also living in Germany. So for the good part of my time, I have lived in two countries, Germany and Canada. And in the last 15 years or so, I have not even spent even 10 cents for any of my health needs, emergency or otherwise, or my prescription glasses or drugs or eye care or dental. Because in these countries, the health is considered as a fundamental human right. And we do pay taxes, and we do have something called universal health care coverage. So in a country like India, unfortunately, we do not have any of these. And hence, I totally understand the point which Vivek is stating. Yes, you do have huge cost for things which actually work, but still there is a huge cost. But I have never even had any thought of checking my bank account prior to going to any doctor when I lived in these two countries. So the bigger question we need to ask is, what can India do better in terms of having better public healthcare coverage rather than having private coverage? And how can that help the burden on the common man? That should be the bigger question we should be asking. Quoting the USA, USA is extremely bad healthcare model, and anybody in US will probably agree with me right away. They have deficiencies in their healthcare system. So that is one thing I need to add. So this is something which we need to talk more in future about. What can India do from taxpayer money? Can we have something so that the common man doesn't have to go has to worry about his bank account before going to a doctor? Thank you.
If I'm allowed to just make a limited point in next 60 seconds, may I?
Yeah, before that, I
Okay,
think Arif has to say something, and then we'll get back to you, Dr. Vivek.
Yeah, okay.
sure.
Yeah, thank you, Abhi and Libin. You have already given a clear picture of how this greed aspect of this medical practice should be observed. But I would like to give the same thing in a different perspective. That is, we are talking about a scientific problem, and every scientific field will have an application level which will be having certain social aspects and the social problems which we associate with that. So here when we try to apply the medicine in a scientific manner, or even when we talk about any other scientific fields, there will be a social problem. So when we come to this pseudoscience or this alternative systems, one of the main two reasons why this is getting promoted in our country, we have already mentioned. And the third one, which I would like to add to that, is this same point, that is the money part, the greed part. This is the biggest aspect which they claim that, for example, if you find some problem in you, just like a simple liver disease or a simple diabetes or a hypertension, at that very moment, the moment which you get diagnosed of that problem, the next thing that can happen to you is that you can either go to a modern medicine doctor or to an alternative system doctor. And when you reach the alternative system, you are wasting your valuable golden hour, the valuable time, and you are damaging your internal organs. That's what happens there. So one of the reasons why these people are led into that treatment is that the modern medicines are full of chemicals. So the chemophobia is working there. And the second thing is, if you go there, you will have to pay more. So you have to stick on with this homeopathic treatment. It is very cheap. That's how it is told to those people. Actually, what happens is, if you get a tablet, say for example for diabetes, you can control it using a tablet which costs less than 1 rupee a day. and you can take a medicine from homeopathic medicine, you'll have to pay more. That's the reality, but nobody is ready to believe that, or nobody is ready to look into that. But this is one aspect which helped me to come out of this practice, because it is not cheap. Homeopathy is not cheap. This is one thing. So the point is, being in a country where the policies regarding the application of a scientific field, just like the medicine which we are talking about right now, is not a reason for promoting or to make a loophole or to piggyback the alternative system into the general public. So the loophole here is the faulty application of the science, that is the faulty policies we have. So here the politicians should come forward, and they should make the policies in a manner that is as Libin rightly pointed out here, that it should be made a universal, a fundamental right for its citizens. Even I'll just give a quote made by the vice president of our country a few years back. That is, he was mentioning in his Twitter that homeopathy is very effective, and we are planning to give more homeopathy clinics into the rural parts of our country, and so that the people will get some good treatment. That was a comment made by a vice president of our country. Just imagine how he is taking homeopathy. So just because you don't need a full-fledged hospital to establish a homeopathy, that doesn't mean that those people living in those rural area, almost 65% of our country, the people of our country, are deprived of a proper health care. And to handle that, what our politicians are doing is to give them certain entertainers like homeopathy or some Irish systems to for time being, and that's how they are fooling those people. So that should be curbed. We should put an end to that. That's what we should talk about, and that's not a reason for promoting this pseudoscience as through a loophole created using this greed aspect. We should use that word very carefully, because that's one of the words used by these pseudoscience practitioners to promote themselves. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I add something here,
Sure, Raghu, please
Arif?
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So since this was brought up, and I'm currently in US, I had to mention this. So there is a confusion that is being spread by wittingly or unwittingly by a lot of people who confuse the societal or economical or political aspects of how medicine is practiced in some countries with the actual quality of the medicine itself. And let me indulge me for a moment. If you look at, for all the people who claim to have a problem with the US healthcare systems, if you look at every country, the richest and the most influential people, the first place they fly into for any of their unmanageable or no curable situations is to US, including so-called the Communist Party members or whatever, whoever, right? So that in itself, it's kind of an anecdotal evidence in itself, is a proof that the health and or the science behind the healthcare that is being practiced here works, and it works superlatively well beyond anybody else, any other system. And that is the reason why healthcare has progressed, because of the science here. Now, societally, how we should take care of the people who do not have the influence or the money to get their health back in order, that is a different question. That is not the problem of modern medicine. That is the problem of other domains. Having said that, I also had a question for Dr. Vivek, who raised this question, this point earlier. How is it that and if I have mistaken your I have misread your profile, please correct me. I do see that you say you're for Ayurveda and for yoga, and you are against pseudoscience. I, I in my limit, I'm not a medical practitioner. I do not understand this well, but I try to follow the scientific temper. I find that cognitively dissonant to say that you're for Ayurveda and yoga and against pseudoscience. And and if it's if it comes across as an ad hominem, moderators can stop me from that. But I find that because this kind of ambiguity sometimes spreads a lot more harm among the audience. The audience who is not well equipped to understand all this. These ambiguities can cause more harm and create more misperceptions about modern science. And I don't think we should give an inch about the superiority of modern science and the workingness of the modern science in any form because of the bad application or bad decisions taken by society in the application of modern science. That's my point of view and open to be corrected.
Yeah. So first, coming to the point about greed should not be used as a system. I was not talking about the societal issue here. I was talking about the systemic flaw in the way modern science is being delivered. And this systemic flaw, see, whenever a system is bad, it opens ways for other systems to take advantage. So I was talking about a systemic flaw, and I teach leadership in healthcare. I teach model of Arvind Eye Care. I teach model of many such. Even Narayana Hridayalaya is one of the examples. Those are the models which are suitable for India, and not the models by which presently most of the hospitals are trying to deliver, because I don't think that model is going to be enough. And I have done enough kind of analysis on this, and I don't see any system which will try to emulate something which is happening in country like US is going to work for a country like India. That's point number one. Point number two, regarding the point of
May I just correct the because I think you got my question on the point number one wrong. I mean, that is the system is undeniably has area of improvement in US. No denying that, because from a societal and the implementation point of view. But the healthcare, the science on which the whole system on which the medicine is delivered, that is not to be blamed for the system, is what I was trying to say.
I absolutely agree with you. Health, it is the science of modern medical science, which is definitely should be promoted and which only helps. Nothing else helps. Only those scientific principles are sacrosanct, nothing else. But I have to understand, if my science is going to take a beating because of the system and I become the part of the system, then I'm not helping the science itself, because it is the science, it is the system which will deliver the science to people and not the science itself. So that was my limited point. Anyways, I think this may go into a long debate, and we can choose a time for this. Now, coming to what Mr. Labin said about my views on Ayurveda, I don't think that Ayurveda, the complete part of Ayurveda, which is practiced, I am not for all the things what Ayurveda Charya claims. I'm certainly not for that. But there is a lot of authentic work happening. There's an organization called S Vyasa which does a lot of authentic work, and I have tried to see some of their work, and it makes a lot of sense. And there are practices of breathing exercises, especially in yoga, breathing exercises, which are definitely useful for example, labile hypertension and many few things. They are being used for treating anxiety related disorders, and they are helpful. There are application of some part of yoga in triggering your parasympathetic nervous system and dealing with some of the issues which are inflammatory in nature. So I am just talking about limited aspect of that. It's not that I say blindly whatever is being claimed by somebody who is practicing Ayurveda is true. No, but Ayurveda is certainly not like homeopathy. There is some stuff in it which can be looked into, which should be examined, which should be probably which should go through more research, and on the principles of modern science, they may have something to offer. And many of our medicines have come through that. We cannot forget that. Yeah. So that was my limited point here. It's not that, see, if I was somebody who would just believe everything what anybody says, I would not have come out of the system. I've worked in corporate hospital and I've seen the kind of system we have created. Now, whether we like it or not, we may be part of it, but it's my first duty to first clean my home. If something which is so important, that is modern medical scientific temper, which is so very important, if it is getting if it is not reaching to the common man because of a flawed system, it's I in my view, it's my duty to correct that system. If I just take that, no, it's none of my headache, then I think somewhere I'm missing the point. That was my limited point. Otherwise, I agree everything what all you have told. I don't think that principally we disagree on something, but maybe my weightage is on one side, where I would try to, because I see there are many things we can keep on discussing about what is wrong. I have seen patients. I worked in nephrology ward in my initial career after doing my MBBS, and I have seen patient in my short career when I worked as clinician is as people coming with renal failures because of many of these kind of therapies. So I completely agree with all the dangerous effects of it, and I'm not at all for it. My only limited point is there is a big reason, because of the system which is delivering the modern medical science, that people are going away from these modalities, and that much can be stopped because it is my home and it's my duty to try to clean it. That's it. Thank you so much.
Libin, would you like to
Sure.
make
I
some?
will probably first start because then now the discussion has slightly moved to Ayurveda and whether he's. I clearly heard everything what he said, and he clearly clarified he does not support everything in Ayurveda, but at the very same time he told that don't forget that a lot of the modern medicines came from Ayurveda. So one thing I want to try to clarify, Vivek, is that whenever we speak about Ayurveda, we have to take this in three parts because that is much easy to understand. The first thing is the fundamentals of Ayurveda and what Ayurveda is based on, which is basically the called Panchabhuta and the Tridosha and everything. Just like how homeopathy is founded on, as Arif initially clarified, the similia similibus curantur and the law of infinite dilutions. Without that, there is no homeopathy. Just like that, without Tridosha and Panchabhuta and everything, we cannot even call something an Ayurveda in the first place. That is their founding principle, which make that whole thing Ayurveda. So we know at the moment that that founding foundation, or whatever principles or theories or hypotheses what they have, is at the moment completely contradicting with what we have in the existing scientific knowledge, and hence that is pseudoscience. So everything they claim that human body is based upon five principal elements is wrong. Tridosha is what, or the prakriti is what, which is there in the person. Every person has a predominant prakriti, and the deviation of the prakritis which cause a disease is also wrong. So these two things can be outright rejected. That's the first part. The second part is about the medicines they use in Ayurveda. So the Ayurveda person make a diagnosis based on all these tridoshas and panchabhutas, and then they also try to treat people based on their, whether somebody is more vada prakriti or kapha prakriti. Then they try to see how they can give medicine so that they can bring the prakriti back and so forth. So the problem is that, as Abhi rightly pointed out, and many people have already done these studies, many of the Ayurvedic preparations do not have enough evidence to show that they can be properly given as a medicine. In fact, it has caused more harm too. So if you just check in the FDA's page or in the European Union page, you can never see them. They are being approved as a medicine. They are still as a food and supplement. So that is one thing. Like, when you go to a traditional Ayurveda practitioner, he might have this knowledge from years, from his grandparents, and so forth, and he might be doing it exactly the same way. And what is a scientific basis that some whole plant extract or a root or a leaf mashed and given has anything to do with curing something? And also, what are the possible side effects, all the other phytosteroids and alkaloids in that, how can that affect, is a big question, and we cannot just give something without knowing what is in there. And now comes to my third part, which is what I fully support on you, is we should do research on anything which has a medicinal property. At the moment, I already told the fundamental principles of Ayurveda is wrong. So let's not say let's do research on Ayurveda. Let's focus on research on active ingredients of everything, not only just in India, all over the world, and try to identify molecules which could have a potential pharmacological effect, isolate them, synthesize them, and use it. Because you know that all the plants have a different climate or weather patterns, and they all contain different amounts of active ingredients. Maybe the active ingredient, which could be curative, might be in low amount, and something which is more harmful, which cannot be tolerated by the liver, might be in high amounts. So we need to identify those lead compounds, not only just from plants, also from other sources. Like I previously also mentioned this, from everything from jellyfish all the way to phytoplanktons to venom of animals. Everything we need things which has to go through this rigorous process of proving and testing and knowing what is the right dose, what could be used, and what is a safe dose, and what is a overdose and adverse events, and even possibly antidotes. So that is no more than Ayurveda. That is actually what modern medicine does. So I think there is a clear distinction I had to bring is like, when you say you don't fully agree with Ayurveda, but at the very same time you told there are still things in Ayurveda, we should not be saying we should have still things in Ayurveda. There are still things in any medicinal plant or a herb or anything on this planet. Let's put it like that. That's the way. The whole fundamental principles of Ayurveda, which is based on, is actually pseudoscience. So that is exactly my point. And thank you. I'm done.
I think I quite agree for the most part of what you just said. I quite agree with it. It's not about Ayurveda or anything. Anything which seems to have some value should be looked into, should be researched, we should find active molecules and we should put them into practice. And that's what modern medical science tend to do. And I quite agree with that. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Vivek, and I would just would like to add one more point about many medicines that we have identified from Ayurveda, which is actually not the right statement, because Ayurveda per se, if you actually look at it, and all the modern medicines that have been derived over the over the last few centuries and currently still in use, there is absolutely no contribution from Ayurveda in that. Please be very very careful on this, because I have actually written about it, and there are a lot of historians and we have actually had sessions on it. You actually look at any of these medicines that have a plant origin, whether it be aspirin or metformin from the French lilac, whether it be curcumin from turmeric, paclitaxel, chemotherapy drugs from plants, they are all being from European folklore, Peruvian folklore, and from Jesuit priests, and Ayurveda has absolutely no role in it. So there are no medicines currently clinically in use that has been derived from Ayurvedic knowledge, and this is completely wrong information, which actually even a lot of common people actually have this misinformation with them. They all think that you find some medicine from a herb anywhere in the world, they directly dump it on top of Ayurveda, saying that Ayurveda did it. That's not true. Even artemisinin is because of modern medical intervention in a herb called Artemisia, and that is from traditional Chinese medicine, and they actually used it for the first time for fevers, and none of such work has been done through Ayurveda for a modern medicine drug discovery, and it is currently not in practice also at present, because Ayurveda still sticks to its pseudoscientific principles, and it is a very clear cut pseudoscience.
Yeah, and also Ayurved people stay in the deception, uh, kind of like Ayurved has patented all of the plants and all the natural medical plants and herbs. So it's not like that. It's just a mere coincidence that we are using those plants or herbs in modern medicine. And if you even if you ask them why does xyz work, they won't have an answer. Their obvious answer will be, okay, it aligns these tridoshas and stuff like that. They won't have any solid answer for that.
Okay, now, yeah, Dr. Arif.
Yeah, I'd like to add a point to that, because it was told here that there are certain problems in our system. So until we clear all such problems, we should do our part. That's what was said here. And I think.
No, I didn't say until. I just said we should look into that as well, because we are the people who are in the system. And if we
Yeah.
just simply close that eyes and do not even talk about that,
Okay.
I think that's not fair.
Yeah, okay. I got your point. But I was coming to that. So, what we are doing right now here, that is opening a room in a clubhouse and having a discussion about all these things. At a time, you can look at your watches, it's almost 12 here in India. And still, we are discussing all these problems, and we are discussing about the probable solutions to bring about some change. So this is exactly what we should do to bring about change into the system. This is the basic, the foundation which we can do right now. This is the thing. And we should continue doing this until we see a change in the system, because through us only we can see the change. We cannot expect someone else to come and save all these things. There is no Messiah to come and save us. So we should do this. We should keep on debating all these things, and we should come to a consensus regarding the problems, and that's how we evolve. When I say this, you might be thinking this is something impossible. No, this has already happened in many other parts of the world, and this is how they have changed. They have evolved from their previous state, and we can also do that. So for that, for our country, what is required right now is these kind of debates, that should happen more frequently, and let's promote it. Thank you.
Yeah, so let us go to Manoj now. I think he's been waiting for a long time. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah,
Vivek. Manoj,
yeah,
please.
thank you. Thank you. I've been waiting since last 3 hours, sir. My name is Manoj. I'm a lawyer. I've been writing on Facebook against Ayurveda and homeopathy since last 6, 7, 8 years. And a lot of, I'm not a doctor, I'm a lawyer, and a lot of doctors who are medically qualified, like MBBS sort of modern medical science doctors, they follow my articles and they appreciate them. So I did my law recently just to fight all these things. I feel very bad that our students, our children have to learn this pseudoscience like Ayurveda and homeopathy. I have written scores of reams of articles about Ayurveda and homeopathy both. So I have an intention to take this to court of law, so that so that we can do something about this. And I'll be needing you people's help. Lot of help I want, because otherwise the court will fine me, saying that I've been wasting court's time. So I have to do more research. That's what I learned from this session, especially from Libin. Though I know a lot of things, I learned a lot of things in this session right now. So court, what happens is, in the court, we can't say I read it in Google, so this is electronic evidence, so they'll not. I need authentic evidence for that. Right now, for for next few months or for 5 6 months, I'll be lacking experience to fight all these things. So within next 6 months, I'm hoping to file a case against all these things, sir. So if you people can stand with me, cooperate with me, and give me inputs, lot of information, I'll be very grateful. Otherwise, also I'll do it, sir, because I hate these two things, pseudoscience and Ayush system, which is a hoax. Again, everything is false in that. I know for sure. So I don't know how you people can contact me. Can I give you people my number so that you can give me a lot of inputs? That it will be very difficult after once we go from here. It will be very difficult to contact you. Thank you.
Thanks, Manoj. I have been communicating with you through the back channel, and we will be in touch with you.
No, I don't.
And I appreciate.
I have not. I don't have that support system. Whatever they asked me to renew my this thing account, I couldn't do that. I don't get any messages on in Clubhouse, sir. So
So
my
what you
number
can,
is, please
so what you can do is
please
you can
please give
actually
me your
check.
number, or take my number, sir. That will
No,
be
so
very great.
so,
Let's not
so
share
the thing is
numbers
like,
publicly.
Can I give you my number, sir?
so the best thing is
Can I
like
give?
Abby, who is here, and also my profile. We also all have our details in Twitter and everything. You can just follow one of us, and then we can be in touch. So it's good not to openly disclose your personal number on a Clubhouse platform. So if you go to Abby's profile or my profile, you can see LinkedIn or Twitter. You can just follow any of in that, and then we can take up from there. But I appreciate your effort though, and thanks for coming here and saying this.
It will be
And
very
yeah,
it will
yeah,
be very
this
difficult
is
for
very
me.
good.
Just
Thank you.
one of you, please take down my number, sir. One of you, please. Please, it's a humble request from my side.
Manoj, we will contact.
7019.
Please,
No,
No, Manoj,
please don't say
we,
your
Manoj,
number
please
here,
don't
sir.
say out a number.
there are issues.
Please
That's why.
follow me on Twitter, my profile. Please follow me there, and I'll message you personally. All of us are there on Twitter. You
Who
can just find my email
who is
ID
taking
also
this
on Gmail. It's available
Okay.
online. Just please find my email ID and just message me.
Okay.
Thanks, Manoj. I think Abby, I think we have gone through all the speakers, right? So unless there is nothing more to add, maybe we can give a conclusion and then wrap up the
Yes,
room. So
yes. I think Roshan is giving a short summary of what we had.
Yeah, I can. You can hear me, right?
Oh yes, please go.
Okay. Okay. So basically, we started off with Dr. Shantanu Abhyankar, who is an ex-homeopath, now practicing as an MBBS doctor in obstetrics and gynecology. He's also done a TED talk dispelling the myths of homeopathy, which is a good talk in YouTube. If you can look it up later on. So basically, Dr. Shantanu, explained about the different theories and principles of homeopathy, similia similibus curantur, how like cures like, and how it came into being. During those times when when you had bloodletting, leeching, and painful remedies such as those in existence. So obviously people chose something less painful. So that's how similibus and everything came into existence. He also explained about the vital force, or known as prana, or something which is beyond human comprehension, and any how any imbalance in this causes sickness in humans. Also, miasms were explained as negative forces that serve no purpose other than to guarantee humans a miserable life and an untimely death. Dr. Shantanu also explained drug proving, and how the Materia Medica was, was looked upon as a guidebook on human ailments and their associated homeopathic remedies. Another interesting aspect which Dr. Shantanu explained was about the BHMS course. It was actually not to create any awareness. Obviously he's gone through that, and the insight was that the students there were not out of passion for the subject. It was out of compulsion rather than conviction, as Dr. Abbey added. It's basically to provide a backdoor entry to the modern medicine and general medicine, basically. And what they are looking for is basically the title of a doctor, a prefix added to your name. And after the course, they practice in conjunction with modern medicine. And the government looks at them as a support staff, or like a half-hearted attempt to provide health service, to fill up any spaces where the service of health is lacking. So it could also be noted that the government even offers less remuneration for such doctors. They are basically ill-trained or underpaid, and there's no great prospects. So this reality actually was an eye-opening from Dr. Shantanu. Then we had Dr. Arif Hussain add on to this. He explained other aspects of homeopathy with the theory of potentization, or infinite dilution. It was also mentioned that medicine in its crude form, or mother tincture, is not homeopathy. So that is where the dilution principle comes into existence. Another point he added was about the similia similibus curanter, and how it came into existence when Dr. Hahnemann, took the cinchona bark extract, and how the cinchona allergy was misinterpreted as working, and that's how it all happened. Another key aspect was about the materia medican again, where the drug proving and the symptoms and everything that was found in it, the whole unscientific method of homeopathic drug trials was clearly seen in the materia medican. He also shared his experience during his course and the experiments he conducted. When Libin asked him about how the tests and clinical trials were done, so he mentioned that most of them were basically fabricated, and the symptoms were just backtracked to complete the trials and just to get the marks. It was done in a stipulated. Dr. Arif Hussain himself took it as a serious matter, and he conducted it in a stipulated, as per the literature theory, to basically understand this. But he tried it in a double-blind manner. An example he provided was about the bulbaris vulgaris, and he was getting symptoms. Another key point was that he was getting symptoms in both cases, even in placebo. The whole experiment took about 3 to 6 months, and now that he looks back at it, he notes that there were other symptoms which were not related to bulbaris vulgaris, and he hadn't thought about that. But now, as he is looking back at it, he realizes that it was a big mistake, because science has its own mechanism where we have to employ, or how or what other symptoms are coming out of those experiments. Now these are the things that is not taught. That is basically look for other symptoms that come out of such experiments. So such lack of validations and lack of statistical significance exists in this course, homeopathic course. So what they basically do is just test it and believe it. And even till date, in the CCRH website, such researches are still there, and it can be seen that the same experiments are done in the same manner, and the errors are repeated and continued till now, by drug proving authorities and research bodies. So Dr. Arif Hussain was saying that there is no attempt in reverse drug proving, and don't think that it will happen. Next, we had Libin Abraham, who is a scientist and researcher in the field of virology and immunology. He touched on the other aspects of homeopathy, such as spiritual, medicinal energy, the energy aspect, silica leaching hypothesis, and water memory. Like if you put something in water, it remembers what has been put into water, and this was disproved, just taking into consideration how we drink water today. We wouldn't be able to drink water today if that was were to be believed, considering where the water comes from during its time span. Libin also touched on the organon of medicine aphorism of Levin about about how there was no physical evidences and everything was pointed towards energies like healing energy, medical energy, etc. And he brought in a key point about the IIT Bombay nanoparticles study, which even till date homeopaths still carry as a proof of existence of nanoparticles. He clearly explained how those studies were had lack of controls, and how the evidences were back calculated. And in the future, several attempts were done but could not reproduce the IIT Bombay studies done in 2010 using proper controls and blinded studies. So it was basically just a waste of taxpayers' money, just to measure contamination, would say. And why would we even be discussing nanoparticles? Because homeopathy has come up with X-ray 30C, which is exposure of sugar in medicines to X-rays, or Luna Medica exposing it to moon rays, or even the last one that came in recently in 2012 was about exposure of this to mobile radiation. So it's kind of like a contradictory statements that they put forward. We also had Dr. Abby Phillips add to a simile similibus curanter, giving the constipation example where opium is administered, which actually worsens the constipation. He also provided more insight of the dilution. Like if you give it's in a dilution form, it's an extension of like 1 in a million. And you wouldn't even see a single molecule. And as per the homeopathic principle, the more dilute it is, the more powerful the medicine is, which is out of human comprehension again. As per their principle, we see that it should basically create symptoms of the disease in a healthy person. But even till date, like after 3 or 4 decades, in the Indian journal in homeopathic research, there's not even a single evidences that proves such symptoms. So the fact being, it is that it is so dilute that there is no molecule to cause any symptoms at all. And another key point, which was the need of the hour, which Dr. Abbey mentioned, was about the arsenicum album 30C, which was provided at this even by governments during this time of pandemic, for prevention of COVID. And there are still no studies about there is that this uh, there is any immune response towards prevention of COVID. So it can be considered as a fraud, delusion, or even deception. And Dr. Abbey also mentioned how homeopathy is surviving today like a cockroach, piggybacking on modern medicine. There were some good notable questions from Arun Narayan Kuti about a paper in the Nature magazine in 1998, human basophil degranulation, which was debunked by Libin and Manoj, providing references about Benveniste affair, high dilution experiments, and dilution. And even Manoj mentioned about James Randi, who challenged and to replicate these experiments, and he rebutted. He actually re-examined, made the editors of this Nature magazine re-examine it, and he went to the lab and made them retract it. This was, I think, this was the first time in history where this happened. Nishad also posted the PDFs of that in the Science Brigade Telegram group, so anybody interested can take a look at it. And why this is still available now, all Abby mentioned about Elizabeth Bick, who does research in this, and why only 2% of papers that are actually retracted are still out there, is due to certain impact factors and citation, etc. But it does not mean that it has to be quoted. Manjunath also brought some good points about of compiling these scientific studies that debunked for homeopathy, which is underway and which we are considering seriously. And we also received frequent one of the questions we frequently receive is about students who are in progress of their studies in homeopathy and alternative medicines, and they realize it's a pseudoscience and what to do next. That was also handled by Dr. Arif. We also briefly touched on Ayurveda, explaining that there is no contribution from Ayurveda to modern medicine just because people believe that any herbs used in modern medicine is a contribution to Ayurveda. So that was refuted with proper references from Dr. Abby, Libin, and Dr. Arif. Special mention to Manoj Pandit in legally fighting this case. There were other good questions and concerns and points made by our other audiences like Manoj Gramat, Mahesh, Ranjit, Abhishek, Adarva, Biju, and all, which were addressed by everyone on our speaker panel. One thought put forward by Dr. Arif that I noted was how he mentioned how a profession carries the professional, like an engineer as a profession carries the professional. But in homeopathy, it is the duty of the professional to keep the profession alive. That is the biggest irony of homeopathy, right? The duty of the homeopath was to look for the scientificity of homeopathy so that no one calls it a pseudoscience. So this comes out of Dr. Arif's difficult times and journey as a homeopath. As a conclusion, we can come to understand that the homeopathy actually came into existence after the War of Panipat in India, where people did not actually know about the germ theory or even a blood pressure. They did not know about the blood pressure measuring apparatus or even a thermometer. So what happens is whatever Hahnemann wrote are taken as holy books, and only reprints are available. There are no updates that's been made, which is against the scientific principle. We know that everything in science should evolve or progress as time goes by, and anything, even germ theory, their ideas were open to questions and updates were made as human progressed over the years. So here we see homeopathy is unalterable. Whatever Hahnemann wrote is the final word. So you can, it's a cult rather than a science, and it's not a scientific discipline. It's just like how Ayurveda has a religious and spiritual backing, and that is the only reason why really runs deep in the common man. This is the similar principle what homeopathy is also carrying, and it's surviving today. So it is fair to conclude that homeopathy is basically a misconduct, a delusion, or even a deception, or even as the FDA clearly stated that homeopathy works when it is adulterated with modern medicine, else it does not work. Or even as the National Health Service of UK called homeopathy a tap water masquerading as medicine. So let's conclude with that until proven otherwise. Thank you. Off to you,
Yeah.
Abby.
Well, thank you so much, Roshan, for that extensive and very beautifully summarized session. And with that, I think we are going to close now. So the takeaway point is the hidden science of homeopathy. So there is no science in homeopathy, and there is nothing hidden. So I hope everyone actually enjoyed this session. We'll have more sessions like this every week, and please follow the Mad Room for updates on future sessions. I'm closing this room in 3, 2, 1. Good night.